from her when she was interviewed for the position, that she would put in place the judiciary's first ever formal sexual harassment policy, timing it in terms of the release to coincide with National Women's Day on Saturday. It's a 25-page document, but I imagine that it packs a punch in terms of how it intends to change behaviors within the judiciary. It covers the basics as well as the much more nuanced subtleties about appropriate and inappropriate conduct among judicial officers, their staff, and other people that they interact with on a daily basis. It also makes provision for confidential, fair procedures for reporting and addressing complaints. So coincidentally, the release of the policy comes as the Judicial Conduct Tribunal wraps up oral hearings into allegations of sexual harassment against Eastern Cape Judge President Selby Mbenenge, further underscoring, I suppose, the policy's relevance and urgency. At about 10 to 8 this morning, I'll be in conversation with Alison Tilley from Judges Matter, and we'll be unpacking what the sexual harassment policy of the judiciary entails, the first of its kind in the judiciary's history. What's mum's superpower? Or more accurately, what's boss mum's superpower? A new piece out on the Harvard Business Review, HBR, suggests that in a world demanding adaptability, empathy, and innovation, working mothers are emerging as a new breed of leaders. They are not only meeting the demands of business, they are reshaping leadership as we know it. The piece draws from personal experiences, personal experience data, and real-life example, and it argues that working mothers possess powerful transferable skills that equip them for senior leadership roles. However, it then grapples with the reality that current workplace systems don't yet reflect this reality, with persistent gender pay gaps, limited flexibility, and high burnout rates holding women back. At about quarter to 9, just before we wrap up the show, I'll be in conversation with Anya van Beek, who is a talent strategist, leadership and HR expert, and also an executive coach. But it's one that I would love to hear your reflections on. If you are a working mother serving at the highest levels in leadership in the corporate spaces, tell me what that's like. What are the skills that you believe are transferable? Has it helped you to be a better leader being a mother? I'd love to hear your experiences of that. As far as the Morning Brief team goes, we are at full strength once again this morning. And Musa, with your hourly and half-hourly news updates. Rob Byrne confirms he's got your traffic updates. Zaikan has got your sport. Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief coming up shortly. Dauleng Lechela, always right on the money with your business and market updates, as well as Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 20 to 7 this morning. I'd love you to be a part of this conversation. Call me 086 000 2032 or send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. What an epic journey of knowledge and information sharing, insight and perspective exchanges, as well as robust engagements we have ahead of us over the next 3 hours. So what are we waiting for? Come on, let's put it in gear and get it going.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out, because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Big stories of the day. Hashtag the Morning Brief.
Yeah, kicking us off, Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief, as always. Good morning to you, Melissa. The Tell me about what's been said about these three women linked to Operation Tutula. There were several arrests, and these three women were the people arrested as part of the marches by Operation Tutula. What's the organization saying about that?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. The three women linked to Operation Tutula were released on bail with warning after being arrested for allegedly disrupting services at the Lillian Ngoyi Community Health Care Center in Soweto. Accused of public violence and trespassing, the women reportedly demanded ID documents from patients in the maternity ward to verify their nationality. Operation Tutula leader Zandile Dabula defended their actions, vowing to continue their campaign and criticizing the government for targeting them. In response, the government has condemned these actions and has said that they are unlawful, reaffirming that healthcare access is a constitutional right, regardless of nationality. Their case will return to court on the 10th of September, so we will follow and see how that goes.
And we're following this case out of the Wynberg Regional Court, where this former teacher faces truly diabolical allegations.
Yes, so the Wynberg Regional Court has dismissed former teacher Ian Warris' application for acquittal on child sexual abuse charges, allowing the case to proceed. Warris, accused of abusing boys in South Africa and the UK over his 40-year teaching career, had argued there was insufficient evidence against him. The magistrate ruled the state's case is strong enough to continue. Advocacy group Women and Men Against Child Abuse welcomed the decision, saying it affirms justice for the victims. The case resumes in October on the 14th, so this is also another one to watch closely.
And here's a newsmaker we haven't heard from in a while, Amazulu King, Mrs. Zulukazi. What is he doing? What's the decision around where to stage the annual Reed dance?
So the Amazulu King has decided to move the annual Reed dance from Enyokeni Palace to Mashobeni Palace near his wife's residence. This has created tensions with the financially strained KZN government. The state recently spent 140 million rand on a new amphitheater at Enyokeni for this particular event. The move will now require additional spending to prepare the facilities at Mashobeni for the Reed dance. Defending his choice, the king said it was to honor Queen Nandi and King Shaka's legacy in the area. However, the government departments have distanced themselves from this decision, and they are stating that they only act on the directive of the royal family. So it will be interesting to see where this leads.
Let's see how it plays out. Lastly, Melissa, I don't know, I suspect you may have had this idea in the past. On a Monday, Melissa, tell the truth. Tell the truth.
I'm honestly not this brave.
On a Monday, after a long weekend, and you decide that, nah, man, this Monday thing is not happening. I don't like Monday. Tell me what Ferdinand Fontaine did that has now landed him in a serious spot of bother.
So Ferdinand Fontaine was sentenced to 5 years direct imprisonment by the Belvedere Regional Court for making a Hawks bomb threat at multiple locations, including his own workplace. On the 11th of November in 2024, after heavy drinking and wanting to avoid work, he falsely claimed bombs were placed at the Department of Water and Sanitation, Transnet offices, and the Belleville taxi rank. This led to evacuation of over 3,500 people and the deployment of major police resources. Fontaine, a first-time offender, pleaded guilty and showed remorse for his actions. Though the crime carries a maximum of 15-year sentence, the court considered mitigating factors and opted for a lesser sentence. The NPA accepted the ruling and warned against similar actions. So to anyone else who wants to pull these stunts, you have been warned.
Don't do it, man. Not a good idea. I wonder if the mitigating factors included an argument that says Mondays are just sometimes really difficult, you know. Sometimes it's just hard.
It is a difficult day, but we have warned the people, okay? So be careful.
Thank you for that. Melissa Puta with the Morning Brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane. on SAFM.
Yeah, that story, by the way, I'm still, still reeling from just that story of Ferdinand Fortuin, who was sentenced to 5 years direct imprisonment for making a hoax bomb threat at multiple locations in Cape Town to avoid going to work on a Monday, which was the 11th of November 2024. In the end, it actually didn't work because I read from the report on it that he ended up going to work anyway, and then now he has to spend 5 years in prison for that particular crime. I wonder what's the most extreme lengths you've gone to try and miss work on a difficult day, or what are some of those stories that you are aware of that people come up with, especially on a Monday, right? After a long weekend, a busy weekend, and then Monday you just don't feel like going to work. What's the most extreme measures that you've seen people take? Do share those with me throughout the day, throughout the next 3 hours. But for now, let me give you a weather. No warnings coming through from the South African Weather Service, so let's get straight to it then. Pretoria will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 22. Johannesburg fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 7 to 21. Mbombela, partly cloudy with morning drizzle, 13 to 22. Polokwane, partly cloudy, 7 to 20. Mahikeng will be fine and windy, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 9 to 23. Bloemfontein will be fine and windy, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 1 to 22. Kimberley, fine and windy, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with isolated showers and thunder showers, 8 to 24. Uppington, partly cloudy and windy, 6 to 25. Cape Town will be partly cloudy with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 17. George, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 8 to 17. Gqeberha, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the evening, 8 to 20. East London will be fine, becoming partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers in the evening, 9 to 24. Durban will be fine with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 25. Richards Bay, fine, 12 to 27. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will have morning fog. Otherwise, it will be fine with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 27.
Channel your inner warrior women this August on Expresso as we celebrate and empower women across South Africa. From trailblazing heroines to inspiring entrepreneurs, we spotlight stories of strength, resilience, and change. Join us for powerful panel chats, wisdom, wellness, and bold conversations on equality, GBV, and women's rights. This Women's Month, rise with the women leading our nation forward. Weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. only on S3.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
The Israeli Defense Force has killed 5 Al Jazeera journalists, including prominent reporter Anas al-Sharif, in an airstrike that targeted their tent outside the Al-Shifa hospital's main gate in Gaza. The Doha-based network has condemned the strike as a quote-unquote targeted assassination and labeling it a blatant attack on press freedom. Israel's defense force has confirmed targeting al-Sharif, accusing him of being a Hamas military operative involved in attacks on civilians and soldiers. It's a claim rejected by Al Jazeera, the Community to Protect Journalists, and several other international players. These killings bring to 192 the number of journalists killed in Gaza since the war began, and the CPJ says 184 of those are Palestinian journalists that have been killed by Israel. Let's speak to Chamano Makadi, who is Deputy Chairperson of the South African National Editors Forum. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. It's a distant away from where we are, but these issues are indivisible, are they not, Chamano? What have you as SANEF and your colleagues made of this reporting and this development, the targeting and killing of the Al Jazeera staff?
Good morning to us. Good morning to the listeners. We express our outrage on this. Certainly something that we deem really as an attack to freedom, rather media freedom, and more so on human rights.
And what does it say about the working conditions, Chamano, in Gaza? Because war reporting is an actual specialization within journalism, and you have journalists who will risk their lives to go into conflict situations. But in this case, this has played out differently in that Israel is not allowing international journalists to come in. They are having to depend on local Palestinian journalists. What does this killing say about the reporting conditions on the ground?
No, certainly speaks to people who are not really committed to transparency. If you are transparent about what is happening, surely you will allow anyone, in this case journalists, who come even outside your shores to basically report on that particular story, and not just those within your borders. And obviously in this case, those that would be coming from outside, as we now know in the case of Al Jazeera, they might look at the story differently, and again I think it adds to this very worrying concern, and not just from a particular region. And I guess it's a story for everyone to see now that the actions of Israel are absolutely horrible, and more so when they themselves are now confirming that they are responsible for this.
And lastly, Chamano, recently we saw three major news agencies, so your BBCs, your Reuters, and I believe it was AFP, coming out with an extraordinary statement talking about the conditions that their own journalists face, saying, many of them now face starvation and hunger in Gaza. That's extraordinary, is it not? Usually these agencies will just go in and report the story and focus on the work at hand. Them weighing in on the humanitarian situation is extraordinary, is it not?
No, absolutely extraordinary to us. It goes to the extent of starving people. I cannot think of a better way of describing this situation. Absolutely, horrible. Hence, in my introduction, I talk of, an attack on media freedom, but more so on human rights. Because if you're going to starve people, that is really taking something to the extreme, and not just for journalists. Obviously, the civilians in this case, they are largely affected. At least if you want to be so bad, don't deny people food. Yeah. So this, I think, it's something that we, as you would have seen our statement as SANEF, we condemn largely. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. That's Chamano Makadi, who is Deputy Chairperson of SANEF. I do need to reflect that the official position from the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is that Israel does not have a policy of starvation in Gaza, and in fact has been facilitating aid to flow into Gaza, as well as on the issue of journalists accessing Gaza. There were developments a few days ago where the Prime Minister Netanyahu said that is in the works and it's being facilitated, and there will be access for journalists into the enclave.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
All right, let's start with some soccer news. We have South Africa. They're back into contention in the African Nations Championship. They had a 2-1 victory over Guinea in Kampala yesterday. Goals from Neo Mayema and Tabiso Kutumela secured Bafana Bafana's first win of the tournament, lifting them off the foot of Group C ahead of the later clash between Uganda and Niger.
Now searching ball, intended target Keegan Dolly, but drops beautifully here. For Kutumela, now a shot, and it's in! Neo Mayema was shackled on match day 1, but will not be held back on match day 2. The ball falling kindly here for the captain of the Bafana, and he makes no play. In little under 10 minutes, Bafana take the lead.
In the meantime, Uganda climbed to the top of Group C with a 2-0 victory over Niger. Elsewhere, Crystal Palace have lost their appeal against being demoted from the Europa League and will play in the Conference League this season. The news comes just a day after Palace beat Liverpool on penalties to win the Community Shield at Wembley. And the Eagles qualified for the Europa League after winning the FA Cup last season, but were punished by UEFA for breaching multi-club ownership rules. Netball news, Spark Proteas assistant coach Zanele Mdodana confident they've selected players with the right capacity to compete at international level. This is after Netball South Africa announced the 15-player squad to don the green and gold for the 2025-26 season.
It was a transparent process. There was integrity attached to the process to select our players. Players put their best foot forward. It was tough. It really was. So we eventually came to a decision of 15 players that we selected.
And we'll also bring you boxing news. Moses Ituama is keen to reach the top of the heavyweight division without sustaining too much damage. Ituama will take on the biggest test of his heavyweight career as he prepares to take on Dylan White in Saudi Arabia this weekend. The 20-year-old is earning a reputation as one of the most talented prospects in the sport. We'll keep a close eye on these and other sports stories. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Trade, Industry and Competition Minister Park Stau and Minister John Steenhuisen for Agriculture will today address the media. They will provide an update on government's efforts to mitigate the effects of the US-imposed 30% tariffs on imported South African goods. The 3 people convicted of the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith are expected to apply for leave to appeal their sentences in the High Court in Cape Town today. Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, along with Stevino van Ryn and Jacqueline Apollos, were each sentenced to life imprisonment for human trafficking and 10 years for kidnapping earlier this year. And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney say a peace agreement for Ukraine must not be imposed on the country. This comes ahead of a summit between the US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good morning. Start with an urgent warning. If you're out in the Mpumalanga region this morning, just getting first reports of misty conditions between eMalahleni and Ochis. You can get the most horrific multi-vehicle pile-ups in these sort of conditions, so please just drive very carefully, very cautiously, or maybe travel later. eMalahleni, Ochis along the N12. Also misty around Hendrina, the R38 and N11 routes, under quite a bit of fog and mist pressures as well today. Coming through Midrand, it's busy already from Brockfontein all the way down to New Road, and roadworks on the N17 this time of morning, backing you up if you're driving in from Brackman and Springs. Quite a heavy delay towards the work zone, N17 West at the Rondebolt Road off-ramp. That's an afternoon problem as well as a morning issue as well. And then Cape Town's just been a crash on the M1 inbound by Yiptiaga. That's sort of as you come on to Plattercliff Hill. Traffic already backlogging through towards the Belleville area, and the N2 inbound heavier than normal this morning from the airport moving through towards Jan Smuts Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The business update on SAFM.
For the first update of the morning, let's turn to Ndauling Lechela. Good morning to you, Ndauling. Let's start with news out of Washington and Beijing. Donald Trump confirming that the truce still holds as far as the tariffs go.
You're absolutely right, Tula. So President Trump has signed an executive order delaying the imposition of higher tariffs on Chinese goods for an additional 90 days, extending a trade truce between the two nations until the 10th of November. Now, the move came just hours before the previous deadline was set to expire, which would have seen U.S. duties on Chinese imports surge back up to 145%, and Chinese levies on U.S. goods jump to 125%. Instead, the current tariffs will remain in place, with the U.S. charging 30% on Chinese imports and China imposing 10% on U.S. goods. This extension is the latest development in the ongoing trade negotiations between Washington and Beijing, and it aims to provide breathing room for further talks, potentially paving the way for a meeting between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping later this year. Now, U.S. businesses with operations in China have welcomed the move, citing the need for certainty and stability in trade policies.
So a truce with China, but not so much with the chip makers who, have revenue that they make in China. The U.S. president insisting that they should share some of their revenue with the U.S. government.
Now, this comes after some speculation, right? The White House has now confirmed that chip makers NVIDIA and AMD have agreed to give the U.S. government 15% of their revenue from sales of certain chips to China in exchange for export licenses. The unusual arrangement allows the two companies to sell NVIDIA's H20 and AMD's MI308 chips in China, a big market for both businesses. The deal was confirmed by the White House, with President Trump stating he initially requested 20% a revenue share, but NVIDIA's CEO negotiated it down to 15%. Now, the revenue sharing agreement is seen as a positive development for both companies, which had been barred from selling certain chips to Chinese companies due to export curbs. NVIDIA's H20 chip was specifically designed to meet export requirements for China, while AMD's MI308 chip was also subject to restrictions. Although the companies will have to share a portion of their revenue, investors view the move as a net positive, with 85% of the revenue still being better than losing out on the Chinese market entirely.
What's the commentary? Revenue collection straight up, or is this a shakedown? I don't know. Remember a few days ago.
Really gets what he wants.
That's what. Yes, that's exactly what I'm sensing. That there's a method to all of this. That eventually he's getting what he wants.
Yep.
All right, last Lintauling, a recap of how we closed yesterday and those markets that have set the tone for this day.
So starting in the US, stocks had a slow start to the week, with markets in the red. This as traders await inflation data. Now, the Dow Jones taking the biggest hit in yesterday's session, down 0.45%. Coming back home, the JSE also taking strain, edging lower. The all share shed 0.2%. This as there was a pullback in gold prices, further weighing on the markets. Despite the blip in commodities, the rand is still stable at 17.75 to the dollar this morning. There's not much action playing out in the oil scene, with prices flat ahead of the US-Russia talks. And then lastly, in Asia, markets in positive territory, with investors cheering the US-China trade truce extension.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauling Lechela with the first update of the morning. She'll be back just after 7:30.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you, Sipho Mantula. Let's start in the Sahel. Tell me what's happening in Mali. What's the story with these 45 soldiers and 2 generals that have been arrested?
Refreshing morning, Thulas and Jumbo Africa, to the listeners. Thulas, you will recall that Mali in 2020, there was a military coup that removed the president there, and that was led by Assimi Goïta, and that's why there was a removal of Modibo Keïta. And after that, the detaining of Abu Bakr, actually Thulas Abu Bakr Keïta, when he was removed. Now, what you saw over the weekend is the arrest of 2 generals, one being a woman who is a brigadier general in the Air Force, Thulas, Nyamasakara, one of the few high-ranking women in the Malian army. The second one, General Abassa Dembela, who was a former governor in the central Mopti region, which is popular within the army ranks. Now, this arrest, Thulas, is that they are trying to destabilize some of the institutions in Mali. And we cannot forget, Thulas, that when you look at the Sahel, the issues of military coups, the issues of active armed groups in that area, what they've been going through since 2024 and even 2025 with attacks on the military base, it is possible that the military coups are coming back again, or what we can call them military revolutions, Thulas, because when it starts with the brigadier general, it sends something, and the 2 have been arrested and the 45 soldiers who are implicated in that attempt of the military coup.
So stability continuing to be an issue of concern in that region. Talk to me about Ghana and the period of mourning that is underway in that country following that tragic incident, the crash of that helicopter.
Let's remember the Z9 helicopter that crashed in Ghana. It killed almost 8 victims. Now, over the weekend, there was a burial of the Minister of Environment, Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, and the Deputy National Security Coordinator, Al-Haji Minur Limuna. And the President paying tribute to them, Thulasizwe, raised the issue that he will continue to do their work in their memory, because they will indeed, their names will be written in gold in paradise. That came from John Dramani Mahama, paying tribute to these 8 victims. Recall also the DNA analysis of this was done in South Africa of these all 8 victims. So it's very important that on Friday there will be a state funeral for the other 6 victims that will be at the Black Star Square in Accra. This is one of the worst crashes that Ghana has experienced in a decade.
And in Addis Ababa, tell me about Ethiopian Airlines mobilizing some $8 billion for construction of an airport.
That's what we want to see in the National Convention agenda setting. How do you align yourself with the agenda?
Put it on the agenda.
Here is the agenda. There might be an agenda.
National dialogue.
Let us be optimistic.
Oh, I see. I thought you were saying this is what you want to see on the agenda of the national dialogue. You see where my mind is.
Convention agenda setting, for me, that to create an African single air transport market, Ethiopia is moving from Bole Airport. If you've been to Addis, Bole is active. You have 25 million passengers annually that passes through Bole Airport. It's an interconnecting flight. Now they are moving just 40 km away from Addis Ababa to the south. That is Bishoftu Airport. That's one airport that the Kenyan Airways had a crash there, by the way, but they are planning to build a big one there. Hence, they got a lot of money, the 8 billion for that one, which will now be used for air cargo. I think Bishoftu will also be used for more cargoes for intertrade within the continent, and then Bole will be for domestic affairs. That shows that Ethiopia is growing. Hence, I say for our national convention agenda setting, you need to look at your airlines, that as a country you can still generate funding and create more employment and create this SADC intertrade and regional integration. And that's what Addis Ababa is doing to us in the Horn of Africa by saying, that airport to us must carry 60 million passengers annually, and it will rise to the capacity of 110 million, and it will be completed in 2029.
And we always say, Sipho, that even war has rules. And part of the reason we can say that is because of what happened on this day, on the 12th of August in 1949. And that's your historical archive for this morning.
It's almost 76 years ago, and we cannot miss this point of understanding that this is one of the conventions of the UN that I'll always call it 4+3. Why 4+3? It comprises of 4 treaties and 3 protocols that deals with the standards of international law for the treatment of civilians and combatants during the wartime. South Africa in 2012 implemented what they call the Geneva Conventions Act which gives effect, what you will call domestic force to the 1949 Geneva Convention. We also were the drafters of the International Criminal Court, ICC, to look at apartheid-related criminal crimes. Once again, the National Convention agenda setting must look at the TRC files. What really happened there, and how do we look at the civilians and the survivors and the victims of apartheid? And I think that's where we are strengthening our case at the ICJ by emphasizing on the 1949 Geneva Conventions Act and the 4+3 that I've mentioned, that the 4 treaties and the 3 protocols are important for us to look. And they also go broadly to us about the conflicts that we see globally, whether Russia, Ukraine, whether the war between, the war in the Sahel, the wars that we are also seeing in Sudan. How do you bring Geneva Convention into sense to us? If we, in 2012, we have to bring that act. I think this archive is very important to us, considering it's 8 years of the UN. Nagasaki, we were talking about it just not so long, in Hiroshima. Very important to look at, is this convention a living reality? Is it manifested in the day-to-day challenges of the conflict that we see now. And that's why I say South Africa has led this process in 2012 by adopting its own domestic convention.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula with your Africa update for this morning.
We love rating things, our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guard Risk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
What is Overtrail? Is it off the beaten path, over the edge of comfort, or the thrill of the road less taken? It's over every bridge, every obstacle, every trail, and over to that view that takes your breath away. Overtrail means going further, exploring deeper, surrounded by the comfort and sophistication of a luxury SUV. It's this spirit that inspired the Overtrail project. Experience Overtrail in the LX and GX range. Lexus. Experience amazing.
When you're uploading massive files, does it really matter what your internet's download speed is? With business class internet, you get a connection that's as fast going up as it is down. Your company deserves business class internet, because just reboot the router isn't a business strategy. Find reliability at vodacombusiness.co.za. Together, let's build the extraordinary. Further together. Vodacom Business.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me take some of your voice notes and then also go to Sidwell, who's holding on the line. Earlier on, we told you about Ferdinand Fortuin, who was sentenced to 5 years direct imprisonment by the Belleville Regional Court for making hoax bomb threats at multiple locations last year. All this had to do with him not wanting to go to work on a Monday. Right? After heavy drinking and wanting to avoid work, he falsely claimed bombs were placed at the Department of Water and Sanitation, Transnet offices, and the Belleville taxi rank. It has backfired spectacularly. So I've been asking you, what are some of the extreme measures that you or someone you know have gone through to try and avoid going to work, especially after a heavy weekend? Let me take one or two voice notes. If they play. Okay, I don't know what's going on. Let me go to Sidwell in Hazelview. I'll come back to the voice notes in a moment. Sidwell, good morning.
Hey, morning, Trustees. How are you?
Very well. How are you? Please go ahead.
Fine. Trustees, it's just a request, man. Can you please try to get hold for us the Ministry of Education here in Mpumalanga?
Yeah.
Because we have a challenge where we stay. You know, I stay here around Shabalala. I know you are familiar with
Shabalala. Yeah.
Hazelview.
Yes.
So the challenge is that there are schools there, the primary, the secondary. But the challenge is that they only teach Swati. You know, and some of us, we don't speak Swati. You know, it's a mix there. There's also people who speak Song.
Yes.
So now we are forced to take our children to go and get educated in Mukulu while we stay there in Shabana. And this thing has been going on for a while. And I've been staying there since 2016. So we are spending a lot So just imagine having 2 children, you have to pay 1,600. Just imagine for a transport. While we have schools around here. So it can't be. It's really unfair.
Sidwell, you know what you're talking about, and thank you for the suggestion. We will definitely take it forward, and the team is nodding that we will try and get the MEC of Education to talk about it. But it's got me thinking. You should read the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, the quote-unquote controversial Bella Act. You see what you're talking about is largely what it talks about, where the population dynamics change and the responsibility on the state that where the population dynamics have changed and the school offers education in one language, you should make it possible that the state should make resources available to accommodate the changes in the population dynamics. So in a way, there's already some measures that are in the pipelines, but I know that doesn't help you now.
Yes, no, I'll have a look at it to last. Just please, man, just try, because we're a lot, because you can see those scholar buses there. It's more than 5 of them. They're taking those children from the other side. While we live here around here, there are schools, but they can't be educated on with their native language. It's really unfair.
Sidwell, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, as I say to Sidwell, that's exactly the kind of scenario that the Bella, at least one of the sections, I can't remember which one exactly, aims to address, where the dynamics have changed and puts the responsibility on government to ensure that it makes resources available to accommodate the changes in the dynamics, in the population dynamics, as well as accommodating languages, multiple languages, even if a school has one medium of instruction.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just a reminder, if you drive in from the Ekurhuleni side, coming in from Brackpound Springs, there's quite a heavy backlog on the N17 into a work zone at Rondebolt Road. It's a scenario that jams you up in the afternoon, going home to Brackpound Springs quite heavily, and as you turn around and come back in the morning, it jams you quite heavily as well from just after the Carnival City exit. It all gets very heavy into that particular work zone. Queuing pressure on the M1 North this morning up towards Samrand Road. Looks like something's just unfolding on your way to Pretoria. Quite a heavy queue for this time of morning, so it looks quite big. And the M1 South queuing coming out of Pretoria down towards Rigel Avenue. Very misty in parts between Ochis and Emeletheni. Please drive carefully along that N12 corridor. Also missed out around Hendrina, so routes like the N11 and R36 and many other routes are under misty conditions. Take it easy through there as well. At Cape Town, looks like a high volume Tuesday going inbound. The M3's already backed up from Constantia up towards Paradise Road. The M5 from Southfield to Kubo Interchange. The N1 has a crash by Yipti Yaga on your way inbound, and then just heavy right through to Kubo Interchange territory, and still no traffic lights. This is important. Strand and LaBelle. That's just on the Belleville side of the Van Riebeek Road R300 bridge. So that's a really key junction. It's already backing traffic up, leaving Cowes River on Van Riebeek across the R300 into Stickland, and it is starting to backlog you as we had yesterday. R300 North will take some time to get off at that Van Riebeek exit into Stickland, and that'll push traffic queues back through to the Delft area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
James, congrats on the babies.
Yeah, thanks. It's a wild ride.
You're a new dad, 2 babies, 0 sleep, and 1 car that apparently couldn't cope.
Yeah, the hatchback was my baby, but it just didn't have enough space for my 2 new babies.
And are you happy with the price when you sold to WeBuy Cars?
Very. We've even got some extra cash to splurge on one of those fancy prams that you basically need a license for.
Good luck, James. WeBuy Cars. Geared for family, geared for you.
FlySafe's Business Booster is back to help elevate and celebrate small local businesses. Enter now at flysafe.co.za. Tell us about your business, and you could be one of 6 standout enterprises to win 10 return business class flights plus brand exposure across FlySafe's various platforms. Whether you're making, creating, or innovating, we're here to help your business not just take off but skyrocket. FlySafe, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
You are listening to The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
5 minutes to 7. The Gauteng Transport MEC, Kidibone Dialetlabela, has strongly condemned the attempted theft and vandalism of road infrastructure in the province. Her comments follow a recent incident on the R24 where suspects allegedly tried to steal electrical cabling, a crime that endangers public safety and undermines transport infrastructure. The MEC, Kidibone Dialetlabela, joins me now to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you, MEC, and thank you for your time. This incident on the R24, the attempt to steal cabling, was it isolated or is it part of a concerning trend that you've observed?
Thank you very much, Abid Pangani, and good morning to your listeners. It's a trend throughout the province, and it's quite surprising how will people have such a, it's disheartening. And our challenge is we don't get to see who really do this. And we, instead of continuing to do service delivery work in other areas, we are now expected to spend more resources on security, for including things like stop signs, traffic lights, street lights, and cabling. So it has been a serious challenge, a trend that we have been observing for quite some time now. And as a provincial government, what we have done is to put together a team of law enforcement agencies to assist us in monitoring and doing oversight on our road furniture and many other infrastructure that we have in the province. So we are trying our best, and that's why we also are making a call to people of Gauteng to assist us. As in, when you see a person vandalizing any infrastructure, please alert us. And that's why you see where we do works, we try hard as Gauteng and our municipalities to also be visible that these are government officials doing work, because we realize that if we don't do that, people of Gauteng don't get to know who is this really person that is doing the work. And we have lost a lot of money. A department like ours, just on fixing traffic lights with intersections, we spend a lot. And it's one thing that requires, it's a multi approach to it. And we are spending a lot of money on just security, and it's quite.
And usually, MEC, the focus is on streets within the CBDs and towns and suburbs and townships, as opposed to arterial roads such as the R24. Is the work being done between yourselves and the local municipalities responsible for municipal roads to ensure that you coordinate your efforts?
Yes, Abu Pangan. I think you have seen not so long ago that the Premier has launched an integrated approach to law enforcement in our province, working closely with the municipal police departments. And I must say that we have registered a serious progress in that regard. We also have within Department of Roads and Transport what we call Gauteng Transport Inspectorate, which is a partnership with the RTMC. You'd know that the traffic officers working for RTMC work 24/7. So part of what they are here to assist us with, obviously on taxi violence, is also we have requested them that they do rounds in the hotspots to help us deal with this challenge.
All right, I've got to leave it there for this morning. Thank you for your time. That's Kidiboni Diale-Tlabela, the Gauteng Transport MEC. Let's go to Ann Musa, who is on standby with your latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, a joint media briefing on U.S. tariffs and global leaders urge to intensify peacemaking efforts. Good morning. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, alongside the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, will today address the media. They will provide an update on government's efforts to mitigate the effects of the US-imposed 30% tariffs on imported South African goods. The media briefing follows a phone conversation between President Cyril Ramaphosa and his US counterpart Donald Trump. They agreed to have their respective trade teams continue with detailed discussions. Katlego Legodi reports.
The joint briefing by the Ministers of Trade and that of Agriculture comes as an established export support desk continues with the provision of updates and support to the affected exporters. The United States is South Africa's third biggest trading partner after China and the European Union. The US accounts for 7.5% of the country's global exports as talks continue with a view to conclude a deal that advances the interest of both countries. The 30% tariff developments are also expected to reduce South Africa's economic growth to 0.3% for the year.
The 3 people convicted of the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith are expected to apply for leave to appeal their sentences in the High Court in Cape Town today. The girl's mother, Kelly Smith, along with Stevino van Ryn and Jacqueline Apollos, were each sentenced to life imprisonment for human trafficking and 10 years for kidnapping earlier this year. The court will also determine whether the witness, Laurentia Lombard, should be criminally charged. Lombard turned state witness during the trial in the court that was sitting in Saldanha Bay. Jocelyn was 6 years old when she disappeared from the Middelbos informal settlement in Saldanha in February last year. Lerato Tlalisa reports.
It's been nearly a year and a half since Jocelyn Smith disappeared, sparking a search that still hasn't yielded answers. Her mother, Kelly Smith, along with Stevino van Ryn and Jacqueline Apollos, were found guilty of human trafficking and kidnapping and are serving life and 10-year sentences. The 2-day hearing will determine if they can challenge those convictions. The little girl has still not been found.
Convicted fraudster Thabo Thulasizwe will be back in the Hatfield Magistrates Court in Pretoria on the 2nd of next month. He was denied bail when he appeared in court yesterday. Thulasizwe, a parolee, is facing fresh charges of fraud and impersonating a police officer. He allegedly posed as the former head of the Hawks, Godfrey Libya, using a WhatsApp profile to extort money from a prominent businessman in October last year. The incident happened while he was still out on parole. The National Prosecuting Authority's Lumka Mahanjana.
In court, he asked to be released on bail. However, the state opposed his release on bail and argued that the accused is likely to commit another offense since he allegedly committed this offense few days after being released on parole. The matter was then postponed to the 2nd of September for transfer to Court 16 at the Pretoria Magistrates Court.
The Anglican Archbishop of South Africa, Thabo Makgoba, has called on global leaders to intensify their peacemaking efforts to end various conflicts around the world. This as the war between Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Hamas continue to cause tensions in the world. The ongoing conflicts are expected to spark heated debate at the G20 Interfaith Forum underway in Cape Town. Makgoba delivered the keynote address at the gathering yesterday.
This gathering is very important because it brings together the faith actors globally, which is a forum that was established in Australia in 2014 in response to what the G20 was doing, because the G20 was looking at economic models and developmental model, and the faith said there should be a faith intervention, because if you look at Christian, Jews, Muslims, Baha'is, Sikhs, and different people, we constitute plus or minus 84% of the global community.
And finally, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney says a peace agreement for Ukraine must not be imposed on the country. This comes ahead of a summit between the US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday. The EU's foreign policy's Kaja Kallas says Ukraine needs to be at the summit.
For any deal to be implemented, Ukraine needs to agree to that deal. Europe needs to agree to that deal, because otherwise it's just not working. Russia will present outrageous goals, and they haven't really changed their goals at all.
Recapping the top story, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, alongside the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, will today address the media. They will provide an update on government's efforts to mitigate the effects of the US-imposed 30% tariffs on imported South African goods. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
If you want to save on your car insurance premium, you call Outsurance, right? But what if you don't save? Then you can ask them for 500 Rand cash and make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. You've got nothing to lose. Get a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Call 0800 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, we'll bring you rugby. Rassie Erasmus looking at the team he's selected to take on the Wallabies, explaining his decision to pick Siya Kolisi at number 8. And we bring you soccer action. Bafana, they have a win against Guinea. Details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Some heavy delays on your way to Pretoria using the N1 will have an impact on the southbound side as well. Quite a big crash scene. N1 North, Pretoria bound at Samrand. Traffic parked back through Olifantsfontein. That's heading north, and then southbound. Everybody having a look at that. So coming through Brakfontein, it's heavy. Crash on the N3 North by Modderfontein. So big delays, big traffic coming up from Germiston. And roadworks on the N17, Joburg bound at Rondebolt Road, causing a backlog out of Brakpan and Springs area this morning. Durban's N2 sitting between the M7 and Westwood Mall, roadworks and a crash scene as well on your way through towards Umgena Road. It is heavy. Today's first of the breakdowns at Keeridge on your way to Cliffdale. Very slow getting through there. And Cape Town, a crash, N1 inbound just after Durban Road, a little bit sluggish due to onlookers, and a collision on the N2 into town just by Jake's Curvell Drive, backing up traffic arriving from the airport. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 9 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday. It is great to be in your company. We are into the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Among some of what we will tell you in the next hour or so, we'll focus on that story that the Daily Maverick describes as the story that the IDT CEO, Tebogo Malaka, did not want you to read. The real reason why the CEO and the spokesperson of the IDT, Pasha Makholane, were caught red-handed, allegedly trying to bribe Daily Maverick journalist Peter Louis Myburgh. That follow-through story has now come out, and it all has to do with funding for the construction of an upmarket property that is being constructed for Tebogo Malaka in the area of Waterfall in Gauteng. That story coming out yesterday. So we'll touch on it and also, tease out the governance implications that are raised by that story. Dr. Helen Kluter on standby to talk to me about that in the next few minutes. And the national dialogue, the national convention at least, the national convention aspect of the national dialogue seems to be unstoppable. We are just days away from it. There's been a rejig in terms of the committee organizing the national dialogue, following, of course, the withdrawal of several high-profile legacy foundations that withdrew at the end of last week, saying that, this doesn't seem to be a well-organized national convention. They withdrew from the national convention as well as the preparatory task team, not the national dialogue as a whole. Many of those foundations continue to believe in the need for a national dialogue, but they just feel that it needs to be citizen-led, and they're feeling that the current process leading up to the national convention doesn't seem to them to be that particular process. We'll speak to Christoph van der Riede, who is the executive director of the FW de Klerk Foundation, in the next few minutes, at about 20 past or thereabouts. Through it all, I'd love for you to weigh in on these conversations and others that are perhaps exercising your mind. The number 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, I'll take those on 061 410 4107. Let's get the second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief underway.
The boardroom heat is on and the pressure is rising. The Insurance Apprentice, hosted by the one and only Babi Moloi, is delivering drama, tough decisions, and big personalities every week. Expect bold moves, emotional twists, and contestants you'll either root for or roast. And yes, you'll be surprised what you learn about insurance along the way. Open up to the Insurance Apprentice, Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
I was in another insurance company and I wasn't happy. One of my colleagues was also without insurance and she was happy. My niece is without insurance and she's happy. Then I just decided I wanted that happiness.
What was the real deal they could offer you?
870.
Every month?
Every month.
That's amazing. You're always getting something out.
Yeah.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
What brought you in Outsurance together?
Let me just jump on the call with them. Let me just see what's happening. He asked a lot of things about my vehicle, my sexy vehicle over here.
Ooh.
Yeah. And to my surprise, 718 Rand I end up saving. And this awesome product called Panic Assist. 24-hour security if we need their help. Thinking I'm a father, I need to look out for my family.
Absolutely. They gave you the real deal.
It literally is the real deal.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and information online.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Remember the jaw-dropping video of the Independent Development Trust CEO, Tebogo Malaka, and the IDT's spokesperson, Pasha Makholane, caught red-handed, allegedly trying to bribe journalist Peter Louis Myburgh? Wondered what that was all about and what the big scandal was that the duo wanted buried so badly to the extent of resorting to such skullduggery? Well, we now know, thanks to a follow-through from Daily Maverick. It's the story the publication says Malaka did not want you to read, allegations that prominent Gauteng businessman Colin Mashawana, whose non-profit company last year secured a big chunk of a 60 million rand contract from the IDT, has been bankrolling at least part of the costs of building Malaka's upmarket property, currently under construction in Gauteng's Waterfall estate. The timing of the payments is another issue, and the Daily Maverick saying it raises a lot of suspicion, with one allegedly made by an entity controlled by Mashawana a mere 3 weeks before the IDT awarded his NPC, non-profit company, the contract to manage parts of Gauteng's expanded public works program in multiple provinces. Let's speak to Dr. Helen Klute, who is governance expert and research fellow at the University of the Free State. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. What governance issues does this, especially the timeline, what governance issues does it bring for you? From the story, one, payment being made while the bid was being adjudicated upon, the EPWP bid was being adjudicated upon. The second payment being made in and around a time when the IDT had made a payment to this non-profit company.
Good morning to us, and good morning to all your listeners as well. Look, I think let's start by the following and saying the media plays a huge role in South Africa in uncovering corruption and making sure that there's some level of accountability. So, if it wasn't for the media, I think if I take back to the Nkandla story years back with journalist Mandy Rousseau uncovering that, then I'm not sure where we would have been. I think the levels of corruption, it's so brazen, it's so there, that is very worrying. I think from a university perspective as well, is that a lot of these CEOs implicated are from our universities, and that also brings into question, whether ethics can be caught or whether it can be taught. The resorts that people would go to make sure that they get as rich as quick as possible. That is worrying. The psyche of our leaders in institutions that's supposed there to serve the interests of our people, that are only there to serve their own interests and to get rich as quick as possible.
Is there something to be said, Dr. Klute, for the model that government follows in delivering services? So in this instance, the EPWP, which is meant to alleviate the plight of unemployed people across the country and give them some income. It's not much. On average, I think they say it's about 1,700 Rand or something like that. Is there something to be said about how that is managed? I was just thinking about the layering, that you have a government that says we want expanded public works program. Then they go to the IDT, an agency of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, who then onward contracted to various institutions and non-profit companies. Could it be that therein lies the opportunity for diversion of resources?
Look to us where there's a corrupt world. There's a corrupt way. There are some of these EPWP programs running in municipalities as well. I think if I recall correctly, last week in the Free State, there was also an incident where officials, instead of making sure that communities get these money, they just take it upon themselves to enrich themselves. And so where there's a corrupt world, there's a corrupt way. So people find ways. I don't think there's something essentially wrong with the program. It's the people. People make or break an institution, and so people will find loopholes. Legislation. Our policies are there. Our policies are intact. The policies are solid. It's people find ways. And for me, corruption is tantamount to treason. How can you steal from the poor in this callous way in which people go about? So it says something about our solidarity, our psyche, our where we are as a people. Those entrusted, if you are entrusted with the public purse, if you are entrusted with leadership at that level, serving the people, being a public servant, for me, that is one of the highest callings. But for people to just take the public trust and abuse it in the way that is currently happening is so worrying.
Just lastly, and coming back to this issue, and I imagine that it will be debated at length, and Colin Mashawana, for example, saying that he doesn't have to respond to, until the journalists at Daily Maverick show what proof they have, and then only then can they take it up. But I'm just wondering, is there a context in which it is okay for the CEO of an entity, especially a public entity, to be receiving financial support, or what you call it, gratuity, or some kind of contribution to their own personal projects, ambitions, and lifestyles from someone who tenders, albeit through a non-profit company, but for a lucrative contract? Is there a world in which this is even debatable?
No, I mean, the world in which we live, there's always been a very cozy relationship between politicians and business people, between business and business, and so it's about, it calls into question the ethics. I don't think we can tell a CEO who to be friends with. Remember years back, I think Jackie Soledad said of one of the, I think it was Glenn Agliotti, said he's my friend, Finis and Clark. So there has to be some distance between CEO and business, so that there's, in terms of apart but also apart. So there has to be some the distance between people in business and people in politics. And again, like I started at the beginning, it calls into question the ethics. It's about the perceptions, how this looks. And so there is a clarion call for ethical and accountable leadership. That is what the Auditor General says year after year. Ethical and accountable leadership gets us out of this governance mess.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. I've got to thank you for your time. Dr. Helen Klute is a governance expert as well as a research fellow at the University of the Free State.
West Africans Niger are hunting for nothing but 3 points, while Bafana Bafana are pumped to achieve a win. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Niger confronts South Africa on Friday, 15 August at 7 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
Yeah, to the big story of the week, the National Convention coming up in the next few days. It's a precursor to the country's proposed national dialogue, and it's proceeding despite the high-profile withdrawal of at least 7 major foundations, including the F.W. de Klerk Foundation and the Thabo Mbeki Foundation. While organizers insist that the event will continue unaffected, critics argue that the dialogue lacks legitimacy, direction, and tangible impact. Let's speak to Christoph van den Heerde, who is Executive Director of the F.W. de Klerk Foundation. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So there's been a rejig since your statement came out as the foundations. The preparatory committee has been rejigged somewhat, and we're told that there's going to be greater involvement for civil society, NEDLEC, as well as the presidency also playing a role. Does this go some way from observing now, no longer involved in the preparatory task team? Do you believe there's still enough room between now and Friday for the process to be salvaged, the National Convention?
Well, we've always been of the opinion that there must be proper communication with the broader public out there. The money that was supposed to be made available should have been used for a comprehensive communication strategy to inform people what the national dialogue seeks to achieve, and also to give communities the opportunity to come together to elect representatives. My personal vision was that you would like within a particular town for communities, white, black, colored, to come together and say, we want to take charge of our own destiny. We want to participate in the national dialogue. Let us choose representatives who will represent us at the National Convention, and that the National Convention provide the necessary toolkit, also training, etc., for people then to come back to communities and facilitate the dialogue. Because the dilemma that you have is that now you have a few organizations that will pitch up at the National Convention. The big question is, who are they? Who are they representing? Are they necessarily, legitimate in the eyes of communities? And this now remains to be seen whether the process that will kick off on over the weekend will really lay a solid foundation for substantive and very constructive dialogues to happen at grassroots level.
So we're told there are over 550 delegates that are confirmed with the support from 28 sectors as well as donations from UNISA and Kagiso Trust. So does that not address that issue of representation? And also, to what extent did you see the beginnings of the process to invite these organizations such that you've got a better and a clearer idea of who these people are that will be part of the National Convention?
No, nothing has been communicated on the websites of government, in the newspapers. I've seen a notice from government and a breakdown of the organizations, but there are no names linked to it. And I think communities that are affected by the national dialogue process would want to see about what is happening here, who are these people, and what will be happening at the national dialogue or the national convention. And that's why we've asked government, let us have at least 2 months. We did not walk away from the national dialogue process. We wanted the national convention to be postponed so that better planning can go into it, and that public can be better informed, and that we have the process explained. Because we would want this national dialogue process to empower communities. You must understand that communities has faced the brunt of corruption, of poor service delivery, of slow economic growth, of unemployment. And we would like communities to participate, to be empowered in the process, so that they, at the end of the day, can hold the public representatives that they elect into office accountable. It's so important that communities own up to their responsibilities in terms of the national constitution as well as the Bill of Rights, and that we restore the faith of communities in democratic processes. And that's the key to the national dialogue. To what extent was this process democratic?
So you've disengaged from the preparatory task team as well as the National Convention, which is Act 1, Scene 1 of the National Dialogue. And there's going to be further engagements down the line. We are told that every ward in South Africa, no ward will be left untouched in terms of the democratic engagement that will happen. Do you still believe that the National Dialogue, ultimately the entire process, despite the weaknesses you've identified with the first phases of it, do you still believe that it can still deliver the vision? And what is the vision?
Yeah, indeed. I think it's important that we remain confident in terms of the national dialogue process, and that we still provide input, albeit from the outside. But I think, and you ask a very, very important question, what is the outcome that we seek? The outcome, I think, that we seek from the national dialogue is active citizenry. For too long, people have left it to councillors and to politicians to run the show on behalf of South Africa. Yes, we elect them into very, very important and very powerful positions. So we need active citizens to hold those people accountable and to bring communities together and to put communities in a position of power. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we now have to take over the role of politicians, but we must hold them accountable through active citizenry.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time. That's Christoph van der Riede, who is Executive Director of the FW de Klerk Foundation.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's start with rugby. Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus made a surprise call ahead of Saturday's Rugby Championship clash against the Wallabies at Ellis Park, naming captain Siya Kolisi at number 8 for the first time in his Test career. With Jasper Visser suspended and Evan Roos released back to his union, Erasmus says the move is more about Kolisi's all-round game than traditional 8-man duties.
The more we practiced and prepared, we realized that the only position the guy really plays at 8 is at scrums. And scrums is probably the thing that happens 13 or 14 times in a game. But general play is probably the thing that happens the most. And with having a guy like Peter Peter and Marco and Sia on the field. At the same time, we really feel Australia is a big threat at the breakdown. All three of those guys are really good guys who clean out at the breakdown, and we feel we're going to need that.
Okay, let's go to Bafana action in the African Nations Championship. They had a 2-1 victory over Guinea in Kampala. The result moved South Africa into contention with 4 points. Uganda climbing to the top of Group C with a 2-0 victory over Niger. Also happened at the Nelson Mandela National Stadium in Kampala. Now, Richards Bay FC head coach Ronnie Gabriel says the 2-1 defeat to Marumo Gallants in their Betway Premiership opener has given him a clear picture. There's little time now to dwell on that loss for the Natal Rich Boys. They shift their focus to the KwaZulu-Natal derby against Lamontville Golden Arrows tomorrow.
First big game we saw in terms of sharpness, in terms of readiness, in terms of what to expect from the players that were on the bench and players who started off. So it will give us a good place to start in terms of preparing the team for Wednesday's encounter.
And that's a wrap of the morning brief sport. There'll be more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the UDM has welcomed the ANC's proposal to broaden the 10-party government of national unity. UDM leader Bantu Holomisa says the decision would help to stabilize the broad coalition. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stau, alongside the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, will today address the media. They will provide an update on government's efforts to mitigate the effects of the US-imposed 30% tariffs on imported South African goods. And the Tsakane Magistrates Court in Brakpan in Gauteng is today expected to deliver judgment in the case of a 39-year-old man accused of repeatedly raping his daughter, resulting in her falling pregnant. The alleged sexual assault began in March 2022 when the girl was 15. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. Here's a couple of big news items from the traffic desk. Lights are down Winnie Mandela and the N1 highway. If you're coming out of Four Ways or coming off the highway in either direction, expect a fairly chaotic morning. It may well be related to a general power outage in the Bryanston area. So Winnie Mandela, the N1 is down. Certainly lights around on the main road coming from Lone Hill all the way down to Bryanston Drive. So that's a bit of an extra schlep as well to get through. A reminder of the roadworks coming out of Brakpan and Springs on your way to Joburg. Roadworks at the Rondebolt exit, so you queue coming inbound along that N17 in the mornings, and you'll queue back up quite heavily getting home in the afternoon as well. Earlier crash on the M1 North at Samrand. All lanes are open, but traffic little bit slow on your way through that section, passing that scene. Not a big delay, but it's just worth a mention that you will have a slowdown there. Here's another big one. Bluffbound coming out of Pinetown in Durban, the M7. A truck has overturned in a crash at the N2 highway. Now the traffic's back through Queensborough and back to North Dean and North Park. So if you're leaving Pinetown, you got to get through to the Bluff area. Give yourself a ton of extra time to get through, or B, consider some alternative routes, but consider that they will already be getting busy with others diverting. The first of today's broken down trucks at Cliffdale, so quite a heavy backlog down Key Ridge if you're on your way through to Pietermaritzburg. Cape Town today, the R300 again, pretty solid as we had yesterday. It's day 2 of no traffic lights off the highway at Stickland, Strand and Labella down. So that's all heavily backed up. You've got some real problems getting off that R300 and turning into the traffic on Van Riebeeck Road. Also, just worth a mention, the Baden-Powell run out from Khayelitsha up towards the N2. If you're trying to get through to Stellenbosch side, there's quite a backlog to work through as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's turn to Dowling Lechela once again. Dowling, let's talk about Process. You're saying Process has gotten the green light from the EU competition regulators to acquire Just Eat Takeaway. Who is Just Eat Takeaway?
So Just Eat Takeaway is like Mr. Delivery. So they're basically a food delivering company based in the EU. Process did announce its plans to acquire this company late last year, and it's just been an ongoing process because Naspers also owns another big food delivery company, Delivery Hero. So there were some competition issues, and so they were waiting for the approval from the EU, and that has been secured. The EU antitrust has approved its 4.1 billion euro bid to acquire Just Eat Takeaway, Europe's largest food delivery company. The approval was granted after Prosus agreed to sell a stake in rival Delivery Hero, addressing, of course, those concerns about potential anti-competitive behavior. Now, Naspers currently owns a 27.4% stake in Delivery Hero, and it's agreed to sell down that stake over the next 12 months and relinquish its voting rights for the remaining shares. Now, this move is expected to preserve competition and consumer choice in the food delivery market. With the EU approval in place, Prosus is poised to complete its acquisition, which would make it the world's fourth largest food delivery company, boosting its presence in the industry, particularly in the European market.
Speaking of competition, authorities approving deals. I see that the Pepco retailability deal has gotten the thumbs up.
That's right. Thulas, the Competition Commission, giving the green line for Pepco to acquire 4 brands from the owner of Edgar's Retailability. The deal is valued at about 1.9 billion rands and is expected to boost Pepco's presence in the adult apparel market and create opportunities for consolidation and growth. Now, the acquired brands include Legit, Style, Swagger, Beaver Canoe, and Boardmans. They generated around 2.4 billion rands in revenue in the 2024 financial year across 462 stores in the country as well as neighboring countries. The acquisition will expand Pepco's store portfolio by 462 stores, taking the group's total store base to around 7,000. The Competition Commission approved the deal with conditions, though, including no retrenchments, maintaining existing employment terms, and continuing to procure from small and historically disadvantaged suppliers. Now, this acquisition is part of Pepco's strategy to capture a larger share of the local adult apparel market, where it currently lags behind peers such as Mr. Price and TFG.
How are we looking on the markets front?
Kicking things off in Asia, now stocks are in the green, with the Japanese Nikkei at an all-time high, up over 2%. And this comes as investors cheer the US-China trade truce extension. This also filtering through to the US, with futures in the green. Those gains are capped, though, as traders remain cautious ahead of the inflation print out later today. And then coming back home, trade mostly in the red, with the all-share shedding 0.2% in yesterday's session following a pullback in gold prices. Over in the currency scene, the rand remains stable ahead of the unemployment print out later today. And lastly, in the commodity scene, oil making slight gains. This as it's up 0.33%, just over $65 per barrel. Jitters remain, though, as traders eye talks between Putin and Trump.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauleng Lechela there with your update. She'll be back with one more just after 8:30, in which update she'll give you a sense of the kind of day you can expect in the markets on this Tuesday.
Spar brings you super savings. Get 2-liter Spar Extra Shelf Life Milk, full cream or low fat for $31.99, plus 100 megs free data on Spar Mobile, or 200-gram Jacob's Cronon coffee jar or 230-gram refill for $144.99, plus 300 megs free data on Spar Mobile. Plus, you could win your share of 6 million rand in instant cash. Prices valid until 24 August 2025, while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
It is time to experience spectacular football talent from 19 African nations. East Africa is on full vibration. From Tanzania, Kenya to Uganda, the pitch personnel are hungry for continental glory. This is the Total Energies African Nations Championship 2024. Witness Jan 2024 on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 from 2 to 30 August 2025. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, in Melissa Buta's morning brief, we told you about Ferdinand Fortuin, who has been sentenced to 5 years direct imprisonment by the Belleville Regional Court for making a hoax bomb threat at multiple locations last year that included his own workplace. And part of the reason was that it was after heavy drinking over the weekend and didn't want to go to work on Monday, the 11th of November 2024, and therefore decided that he was going to falsely claim that bombs had been placed at various buildings. He's now pleaded guilty and has been sentenced. And I was asking earlier on about, the difficulty of Monday sometimes and the measures that you have gone through or someone you know has gone through to try and avoid going to work on a Monday.
Morning, Thulasizwe. Morning, Thulasizwe. On that issue of not going to work, I'm always having videos of accidents, videos of strike. So sometimes I always forward a video of a strike. Then I just say, they've got a shutdown at our location. And then they said, don't come more, otherwise they will kill you. Then I know I'm done for the day.
Yo. I didn't expect him to say his name after that. I'm not surprised he didn't say who he is. I'm not surprised he chose to be anonymous. Water is another one, isn't it, these days? I have no water in my complex. Therefore, I can't come to work.
Hi, Thulas. Good morning. Yeah, no. That gentleman who cancelled Monday is Nkalagata. I want to give him an Nkalagata award.
Legend.
He's less.
So
Monday.
But the funny thing is, it didn't work. In the end, he ended up going to work. Despite that whole elaborate plot, in the end, it didn't work. He not only did he go to work, he then landed in tons of trouble. As you now know, he's going to be in prison for 5 years because that is no laughing matter, the measures to which he went. Keep them coming. Zelma is talking about excuses that include a gate remote, electric gate, and the motor is not working, and therefore I can't get out of the house. I can't get out of the yard, and I'm just not going to be able to make it to work. Nkululeko in Postmansdorp, is it? Postmansberg, yes. Talk to me about the national dialogue, yes.
Yes, because I'm thinking, good morning to everyone. I'm thinking, do we really need the national dialogue? Because we have so many commissions ever since the dawn of democracy. Just now, recently, we have another commission which is supposed to start. So what's there to talk about? Sure. I mean, as South Africans, I don't think we really need such an expensive conversation amongst ourselves. We are here for how many years now since democracy? The politicians must just come out and tell us the truth. They don't have a plan. They are not innovative. They don't have a plan.
Sure.
They don't want to think. They can't think.
Let me challenge you differently, Nkululeko. Let me ask you, as a South African, when you sit and reflect, other than the issues of we have high crime rates, corruption is rampant, service delivery failures, are there no issues that when you sit back, you think, man, I get why we needed to do that in 1992, 93, in terms of agreeing that this will be the way we do things, but I just don't get why this needs to continue to be the issue so many years later. Are there no issues that are more structural and fundamental that have to do with the pillars on which our society rests, not the day-to-day issues? Are there none of those for you?
That's exactly the point, Thulas. That's exactly the point. There are no new issues in the country. We don't have new issues in the country. We have corruption issues, we have service delivery issues, and then we have your crime issues, so day-to-day challenges as a nation. But then, to be honest, we really do not need this unless the government is planning to do whatever with the money they are going to spend. Maybe we must talk about it.
All right.
Maybe they have a plan to spend such money on a conversation which we really don't need as a country.
All right, Nkululeko, thank you for that. That's Nkululeko there. Let me go to Yanga in Cape Town, also on the same theme. Good morning to you, Yanga.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
Yes, Thulasizwe, no, I want to talk about this upcoming convention. Is it this weekend?
Yes, it's this weekend. It starts on Friday.
Oh, yes. Yes, because Thulasizwe, that services and goods are going to be needed. So, correct me, I haven't saw anywhere, where the potential suppliers were invited, to, on an open tender system. Because either way, Thulasizwe, you can't say this is not a government-led initiative, but the money will come from Treasury and automatically the Public Finance Management Act needs to kick in. We cannot have people who are sitting somewhere and identifying their own suppliers without putting the whole thing into an open tender. So that is my concern.
Yeah. So, Yanga, just part of the explanation that has come through from the presidency as well as the preparatory committee of the National Convention is that much of it entails donations in kind. So UNISA is at the heart of it. We are told that UNISA has come through with the venue as well as quite a number of the other logistics. And NEDLEC are the other players who are coming in. And basically, part of the transport plans include state-owned transport providers.
I see.
So at this point,
no,
that's at least the explanation that I've heard until this point.
Oh, okay, Thulasizwe. Then I'm fine because I missed that part. I thought the money comes from Treasury, so it will be very, very
but I'm pretty
illegal,
sure there will be
for them
some.
to.
There will be some that will be coming from Treasury. So, for instance, the money coming from NEDLEC, the government will have to reimburse. So ultimately, it will be coming from government, no matter how minimal it is.
Yeah, I'm worried about this process. When I put Thulasizwe, that, it. Okay, thank you so much for the explanation,
right.
sir.
Thank you, Yanga. That's Yanga in Cape Town. Let me go to Mark in the Northern Cape. Good morning to you, Mark. One of the issues that I imagine would need to be on the agenda of the national dialogue is on your mind this morning.
Yes, Thulasizwe, and it's the one of corruption. Thulasizwe, I have some family members who is part of the UIF lab creation program. And the information that I saw about corruption and the involvement of officials and the commissioner there is astonishing, Thulasizwe. There's a college in the Northern Cape that is running the program for 5,000 learners. And I've seen documentation of how they have extorted in March almost 6 million rand from the college. And for the last 4 months, the college didn't get any pay, the learners didn't get stipends, facilitators didn't get money because there is a group of people that is extorting money from them. They are saying they're working with lab officials and the commissioner. I've seen a letter that was written to the commissioner to this extent that was saying that people that is extorting, you are not paying us, with no response to the college. Children are dropping out of that program. Sizwe, I'm talking here about hundreds of millions of rands that is involved. So the conversation we need to have is about the involvement of government officials in corruption.
Yeah. Mark,
that is a big problem.
Where in the Northern Cape is this program happening?
The program is across the Northern Cape. The college is in Kimberley.
Yeah.
They are doing new venture creation. Like I'm saying, they have done now over 1,000 learners and probably about 600 dropped out already because they don't get paid.
All right, Mark, hold on if you don't mind. Stay on the line. Let's see if we can take your details, if you don't mind as well. Just connecting you with our team in the Northern Cape. The SABC has an office and a reporting team on the ground in the Northern Cape in Kimberley. I imagine that they would want to see some of what you have there and see if there's follow-through that can be effected on that situation. Let me go to Ali Nzanin. Good morning to you, Ali.
A very good morning to you, Thulas. How are you?
Very well. Is this an issue you want to be on the agenda of the national dialogue?
No, it's a different one.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm from the a village called Harare in Zanin. But now I'm here in Bryanston. Look, Thulas, I have a problem about this GNU. Why don't they come together and implement a death penalty in our country? Because innocent people, Thulas, are getting killed every day. Every day. Now I want to put it to you, and for sure you know. Our women, our mothers, our grandmas are getting raped, killed by these monsters, and then nothing is getting done. So just because they are powerless, they don't, they can't defend themselves. Our women are getting killed, are getting beaten. So any man who raises his hand, any man who beats up his wife, is nothing but a piece of something. It's nothing. You know, I'm getting angry. Yesterday, there was a gunshot here in Simbisa Rabarishi. Every day, it's the same story. Gunshot. I'm asking myself, who are these people and who are they shooting? But I can tell you, they're shooting at someone. And then, yes, the police are trying their level best, but let government do something about this. Let us be like Botswana.
Ali, thank you very much. Thank you for that contribution from Ali in Bryanston, originally from Zanin, talking about the death penalty. Of course, this was an issue that was debated quite extensively at the dawn of our democracy with the result of that judgment, the Makwanyana judgment, that abolished the death penalty, and the arguments along the lines of it's not compatible with our constitution, talking about, you know, being free from violence from all quarters, private and public, not being subjected to cruel and degrading punishment, and arguments about human dignity and the likes. All of that came in, and ultimately the decision was, if you were to have a referendum on this matter, I can only imagine the outcome that would come through. But some of these matters, we are told, you don't put to a referendum. It's not about populist decisions. It's about the principles and values for which you stand as a society, no matter how painful. But the point that Ali is making about the levels of crime, I think I've said enough about that over the last few months. I think you know my views exactly about the sense of lawlessness that keeps growing in our country, and the sense that there's a war going on and our side is not fighting, or doesn't seem to be fighting.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Quite heavy on the south side of Pretoria. Start up with a crash on Fountain Circle. So the R21 coming in from Monument Park is heavy. George Storer from Brooklyn and coming south out of Pretoria. A lot of backlogging into Fountain Circle this morning. Also the N14 queuing heavily at the Eupheus off-ramp. Delays on your way on the main carriageway to Pretoria, as well as trying to off-ramp there. And Roger Dyson, traffic lights are down at the R101, so coming through from the industrial side, quite heavy backlogs as well. Joburg, stationary truck before you get to Winnie Mandela. Well, it's a stationary vehicle before you get to Winnie Mandela. So the M1 North backing up heavily from the Randburg side as you make your way through. A reminder of the roadworks on the N17 at Rondebolt Road, driving inbound from Brakpan and Springs. That's all heavily disrupted. Here's one to avoid if you're just about to leave Pinetown or you're already on the M7 trying to get through to the M2 in the Bluff. It's a heavy one, and it's well worth avoiding. A truck crash, truck overturning M7 at the N2. Traffic queues right back to North Dean, North Park. There's a lot of congestion around Malvern, just south of the M7, as motorists either struggle to get in or try to get off, and routes like Wakesley Road, Sarnia Road, all taking bigger volumes to try and work around that M7. There's a lot of congestion between Pinetown and the Bluff area this morning. Stationary truck still with us between Keyridge and Cliffdale. If you're on your way up to Pietermaritzburg, quite heavy just past Shongweni. And Cape Town, day 2 of heaviness on the R300 going north. North, off-ramping at Stickland. The traffic lights down at Strand Road and LaBelle. That's same as what you went through yesterday. A lot of congestion around Robert Sobukwe and Stellenbosch Arterial, top of the airport around the Motterdam area, and quite heavy possible traffic light issues again on Malabongwe Drive as you exit Rivergate, top of Parklands North. Very slow out towards Potsdam Road in the N7 highway. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Four-time World Rugby champions, the Springboks, want to emphasize their winning mentality. However, the Wallabies are going all out to upset the reigning global champs. This is the Rugby Championship. Experience world-class rugby action. South Africa collides with Australia on Saturday, 16 August at 5:10, live on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the morning brief.
6 minutes to 8 on this Tuesday. On the occasion of National Women's Day on Saturday, the Chief Justice, Mandisa Maya, announcing a landmark development for the country's legal system, the implementation of a sexual harassment policy for the entire judiciary. Described by the Office of the Chief Justice, the OCJ, as a historic and urgent intervention, the policy aims to safeguard the dignity, integrity, and independence of the judiciary by rooting out sexual harassment within its ranks. Let's speak to Alison Tilley, who is attorney and coordinator at Judges Matter. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time, Alison. The way I remember it, the way I recall it, this was a pledge that the now Chief Justice made during her period when she was being interviewed by the JSC for this particular position. Tell me what the contours are of this sexual harassment policy and just its, how it fits in with notions of justice and upholding our various constitutional values.
Well, I think the thing that's important about it is that it creates more ways for people who are in the judiciary to report sexual harassment and to really teach people about sexual harassment. I think it's not just creating a reporting mechanism, but it's also trying to make sure that everybody in the court's ecosystem understands what sexual harassment is, which I think is an important development.
And a key feature is the introduction of reporting mechanisms. What was not working with the current reporting mechanisms that had the JSC as well as the Magistrates Commission at the heart of it?
Well, I think the difficulty was that it was an all or nothing situation. You either had to lay a complaint with the JSC or with the Magistrates Commission in terms of the codes of conduct for magistrates or judges, or nothing. And I think what this does is creates a mechanism where people can raise concerns, they can get help, they can find people who will mediate if that's something that they want to have happen, and they can also, just make sure that somebody knows that they're in difficulty. So I think that it creates a whole lot of options that weren't there before.
Yeah. And it's coincidental, is it not, Alison, that it comes as the Judicial Conduct Tribunal into the allegations leveled against the Eastern Cape Judge President Selbin Benenge are coming to an end through, the arguments that will be presented. It's purely coincidental because, as I say, this was an undertaking that the CJ had made much earlier than that. But to what extent does this policy address, for instance, behaviors that we've come to understand that have come to the fore through the processes of the Judicial Conduct Tribunal into Judge President Selbin Benenge?
Yes, you're quite right. This has been a long time in the making. I think that what we are able to say based on the policy is that it's not necessary for a complainant to immediately that sexual harassment occurs to say stop this as sexual harassment. I think it accepts that in the workplace where there are these power imbalances, the potential complainant may be in a situation where they can't immediately do that. And I think it explains quite clearly what that may look like. And I think that's something that certainly did come up in the conduct tribunal for Judge President Mbenenge. So I think it's helpful in that way. It's actually, it's actually quite a useful document, I think, if people are considering sexual harassment policies in their workplaces, to actually look at it and see the explanations of what constitutes sexual harassment.
Yeah. And in terms of the behaviors that are prohibited, talk to me about those: verbal harassment, non-verbal, and even digital. So is that partly why you're saying that it might be a model that even people outside of the judiciary may want to emulate in putting in place their own sexual harassment policies? Yeah.
Yes, and I think just, having people be able to go through the policy and think about the different ways it would apply in their workplace, I think is very useful. So, and I think it is innovative. So there's ways of dealing with sexual harassment, which I think could be useful in other places.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time. Alison Tilley is attorney and coordinator at Judges Matter. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Time to switch and save. Call 08600 60,000 today.
In our top stories, UDM supports ANC's proposal to broaden the GNU and a joint media briefing on US tariffs. Good morning. The UDM has welcomed the ANC's proposal to broaden the 10-party government of national unity. UDM leader Bantu Holomisa says the decision would help stabilize the broad coalition. He says the move would also prevent some parties from holding the GNU to ransom by threatening to leave. However, several parties in the GNU have rejected the plans for expansion. The ANC's move follows disputes with its largest partner, the DA, over budgets and policies. Holomisa says the GNU must put the interest of the nation first.
There was no winner in the elections of South Africa in 2024. Hence the GNU today. It meant, therefore, that all parties in Parliament are eligible to participate if they want to. So there's nothing wrong in extending that. The best way is to always sit around the table and say, if you talk policy A, this is what we are suggesting, and then you find an agreement and consensus.
The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Park Stawu, alongside the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, will today address the media. They will provide an update on government's efforts to mitigate the effects of the US-imposed 30% tariffs on imported South African goods. The tariffs, which took effect last week, have affected sectors such as automotive and agriculture that rely heavily on exports to the US. The media briefing follows a phone conversation between President Cyril Ramaphosa and his US counterpart Donald Trump. They agreed to have their respective trade teams continue with detailed discussions. Katlego Legodi reports.
The joint briefing by the Ministers of Trade and that of Agriculture comes as an established export support desk continues with the provision of updates and support to the affected exporters. The United States is South Africa's third biggest trading partner after China and the European Union. The US accounts for 7.5% of the country's global exports as talks continue with a view to conclude a deal that advances the interest of both countries. The 30% tariff developments are also expected to reduce South Africa's economic growth to 0.3% for the year.
The Tsakane Magistrates Court in Brakpan in Gauteng is today expected to deliver judgment in the case of a 39-year-old man accused of repeatedly raping his daughter, resulting in her falling pregnant. The alleged sexual assault began in March 2022 when the girl was 15. After turning 18, she opened a case against her father, leading to his arrest last month. The state says it has a strong case against the accused, since DNA evidence confirmed he's the father of his daughter's child. Commissioner for the Cultural, Religious and Language Commission, Advocate Sipho Mantula, has called on world leaders to join forces to fight conflict, hunger and cultural intolerance. He was speaking at the G20 Interfaith Forum at the Cape Town International Convention Centre. Faith leaders, business and political leaders will for the next 4 days discuss ways of fighting poverty ahead of the UN Sustainable Development Goals deadline in 2030. Mantula highlights the value of the gathering.
I think the significance of the G20 Interfaith Forum to the continent and to the Rastafari community is very important, considering how Africa has now become playground of inequality, lack of sustainability, and lack of solidarity with many African countries that are facing with conflicts. Like what I've said, that many African countries are facing conflicts, and the role of religion also is a negative force. It's not a positive force. The role of culture also, and the use of the language in this geopolitics or in the global world that we are in.
And finally, the Nigerian Air Force says it has killed more than 100 criminal gangs in raids in Zamfara state. The raids follow rising violence, including a deadly gang-related attack on a village last week. Organised crime and disputes over resources have worsened regional instability. The BBC's Chris Uwoko has the details.
The authorities said about 400 gunmen were massed in Makakari forest in preparation for an attack when they were struck. They said the operation involved precision airstrikes and ground assaults, resulting in the deaths of several notorious bandit leaders and scores of their foot soldiers. Over the past weeks, armed gangs have targeted villages in parts of Zamfara, killing scores of people and kidnapping many more.
Recapping the top story, the UDM has welcomed the ANC's proposal to broaden the 10-party government of national unity. UDM leader Bantu Holomisa says the decision would help to stabilize the broad coalition. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. Visit outsurance.co.za today. You always get something out.
You are the poster child, the biggest saver we've ever had.
I decided that I would contact Outsurance and let them work out what they could do for me.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, big saving. 2,794 Rand a month.
That's over 33,000 Rand a year.
And it was the easiest switch ever. Real people helping real people get real deals.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports Headlines, cricket, the Proteas teenage sensation. It's Kwena Mapaka ready and fearless for tomorrow when they take on Australia. And we also have rugby. The Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus making a surprise call ahead of Saturday's Rugby Championship clash. We'll have details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. One of the top stories down in Durban, a big truck crash on the M7 bluffbound at the N2 highway. Traffic is parked all the way back through Queensborough, back beyond North Dean, North Park, and there's a lot of congestion off the highway through the Malvern area. Routes like Sarnia, Wakesley and the main road really under pressure as motorists trying to avoid that M7. It's a really big deal. Staying in Durban, a stationary truck still with us going up to Cliffdale, so quite a heavy backlog to work through the Key Ridge area. Crash into Pretoria this morning at Fountain Circle. The R21 is heavily backed up, arriving into that from the Monument Park area, and a breakdown before William Mandela on Joburg's N1 North means a delay coming through from Randburg. If you're leaving the Parklands Tableview area of Cape Town, Marine Drive down to Racecourse Road, solid, and quite a big heavy backlog on Malabongwe Drive from Rivergate down towards the N7, and the N1 out of town, a crash at Durban Road, slowing traffic from Plattercliff Hill. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
With Thulasizwe Simelane, weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 9 minutes after 7. You heard the young lady there. That's Simingaye Ngalane, 7-year-old Simingaye Ngalane. You heard the young lady. You're listening to the Morning Brief on SAFM 104 to 107 with Thulasizwe Simelane. I've got the biggest smile. There's nothing you can do or say that will take the smile away today. Nothing that, just because of what has just come through from Simingaye Ngalane, 7-year-old who absolutely loves the show and listens in. Now that I know, Simingaye, that you are listening, you know, we must now put in more content that talks to, you know, this young leader. What do you say, Zalma? Talk to this young leader from time to time. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the third hour. I'm a bit frazzled now because of all of this excitement. She's put the biggest smile on my face. Let me go through, though, to serious matters, some of the messages that have been coming through on the various topics and themes that we've covered this morning. Someone here says, South African government claims that we have the best constitution in the world, a constitution that failed its citizens, and constitution that favors criminals. In South Africa, criminals can kill your family and get arrested. Few years later, they are free, says this person. I'm not surprised when others call South Africa a banana republic. That sentiment coming through from that person. And let me take this one. It's from Tsepo in Vereeniging, who says, it's interesting that government says the national dialogue will not cost 700 million rand, but can't give the citizens any figure. How do you conduct something of this magnitude and not, quote unquote, worry about the cost, asks Tsepo in Vereeniging. So Tsepo, we did end up getting some kind of a figure from Vincent Magwenya in our conversation with him yesterday. I think he said it's a ballpark figure at this point, in the sense that they are trying to minimize the costs and make sure that it doesn't even reach that particular figure. I'm forgetting what it was. Was it 25 million rand? Yeah, I think it was somewhere there. That's for the National Convention. But he was saying that it will come down significantly because a lot of the activities are being done and sponsored in kind. And then he went on to say that the budget for the actual, national dialogue will then be clearer once you've had this national convention and you've gotten a sense of what is the work that needs to be done going forward in terms of the various dialogues that will be happening all across South Africa. And only then can you get a proper sense of a budget. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, the preparatory committee now running with it, I think they gave a figure that's even much lower than the one that Vincent Magwenya gave us on the show yesterday. If I'm not mistaken, and I stand to be corrected, I think they're talking 8 million rand is the new figure from the... But you're absolutely right. We do need to get to a point where we know exactly how much of it are we funding over and above the sponsorships. Let me read a message from Felix in Midrand. Felix says, I wouldn't be too excited about Mayberg's connecting of the proverbial dots. He made similarly elaborate claims in his books about Montana and Ace. Zondo couldn't find wrongdoing by Montana, instead called for further investigations. Ace's case, that is limping before it even starts, turns on Cholota, contradicting her Zondo testimony and implicating Ace, which she refuses to do. Even then, it's about solicited funds for student support, not Ace's pockets, says Felix there in Midrand, weighing in on the reporting by Daily Maverick as well as the journalist Peter Louis Mayberg. You can do the same. Give me a call. The number 086 000 2032 or your WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. That smile is still there, Simingaye Ngalane, making me smile. Let's get the third hour of the morning brief underway.
The reigning champs, Amapagania, want to demonstrate that they have a consistent winning formula. But 2024 semi-finalists, Masandawana, say this time around they will advance to the final. This is the MTN 8 First Leg semi-final. Wafa wafa! Catch Orlando Pirates versus Mamelodi Sundowns on Saturday, 16 August at 2 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SABC is pleased to announce the launch of the new self-registration platform. Vendors wishing to do business with the SABC can self-register on our internally developed platform. Vendors are able to access this platform on our website, sabc.co.za/SABC, under e-tenders, or self-register at etender.sabc.co.za and follow the prompts. Visit SABC social media pages for more details.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me start with a call from Mxolisi out in Soweto, who wants to talk about the Constitution of the Republic. Good morning to you, Mxolisi.
Yeah. Hi, Thulas. How are you? I'll try and be very, very
sure.
quick. Hopefully, I can get my point across. So, the part that says that South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
Yes.
So, that word belong gives rise to ownership. So, I just want to find out, how is that ownership exercised? Is there supposed to be an act? Because, just to make an example, if Thulas was the only human being or only citizen in the country, then when we say South Africa belongs to Thulasizwe, then that would mean that all the minerals, all the property, all the assets, everything. But because there's 55 million of us, then we have to talk about sharing. How is that exercised? So if we were to put, sorry to go quick on this.
Sure.
So if we were to put a value to this entity called South Africa, let's say it's 60 trillion rand and 60 million of us, then it means 1 million would need to be assigned to each and every owner or a shareholder of this entity called South Africa. So I just want to know, how is this ownership exercise, or do we have to go to the Constitutional Court and say, what do you mean by ownership? Because in a company setup,
Can I ask
company setup,
Can I ask you, what made you think of it this way?
I've
never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I was reading the Constitution, and it also says this. Whatever is in this document is the supreme law of the land.
Yes.
So those words that South Africa belongs, they are law, right? It's not like it's just something that was written. Someone woke up and wrote it and said South Africa belongs. So it is law, and it says it is the supreme law of the land, whatever is written in that document called our Constitution. So how do we, as ordinary South Africans, similar to how shareholders will exercise their right to ownership of a company, how do we as South Africans exercise our right to ownership?
Mxolisi, thank you for that. I think the best I can do to try and answer that is that we as South Africans have the proverbial skin in the game. We own it in the sense that it belongs to us, in the sense that our fate collectively is tied to the well-being and welfare of this project that we call constitutional democracy, that we call democratic South Africa. So we take ownership of it to make sure that, we put our best endeavors to ensuring that it succeeds as a project for our own well-being individually. And I suppose that's the sense of shared ownership. If things go well for South Africa, they go well for all of us. If they go south, not in the sense of the south of Africa, but in the sense of they're going badly, we are equally affected. And I think that's one of the elements. But you then are absolutely right, and I think you didn't raise it, but there's a question that you then say in terms of the economic justice questions that then come up, the dividend of that democracy. Those are the questions that we must continue to grapple with, because that ownership must translate to something, at the very least, a better life for all of us, and at most prosperity for all of us. Certainly not the kind of scenario that we have at the moment, the levels of unemployment that we have. That is the ownership, in my, at least if I had to be philosophical about how we all own this piece of land called South Africa. Pravesh in Durban, good morning. You want to reflect on an event in history, a very important one. Good morning. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Gerard. Thank you for taking my call. Now, I wanted to actually remind South Africans that the 6th of August 1985, there was a major upheaval that took place, and it seems to have been forgotten. It was the rioting of where people were brought in from outside to Inanda and uprooted entire Indian community of 1,500 families. And to date, we are still waiting for an inquiry. We are still waiting for the truth to come out. We have asked government on 2 occasions already to open up that inquiry so that there could be redress to that, and so that this historic event does not repeat itself again.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's not been taken seriously.
Yeah, so no traction there in as far as trying to open the page and trying to inquire. Was there any inquiry at any point that tried to get to the bottom of it? Something similar to, the whitewash, I don't know, inquiries that would happen when there's been an activist that would have died under apartheid. Nothing like that.
Nothing like that. It was not even mentioned in the TRC. And that's the reason that there's so much of pain. People have not recovered from that because there's no closure to it.
Yeah.
And many of them have passed on, waiting for this inquiry. And to date, nothing has happened. And we've petitioned the president on 2 occasions already that, look, we need an inquiry. We need it to be official. We need closure. And, it needs to come from government. While some people might know who the perpetrator was, but it is difficult to say it openly unless there's an inquiry.
Privesh, thank you for that, and thank you for raising it. And I think it's the second time that you're raising it. You've challenged us. Let me just think about how we can take that conversation forward. Perhaps someone who is a repository of knowledge and history about this event that can frame it nicely for us. It certainly sounds like a discussion that we should have in the coming days. Let me quickly take one voice note and then move on to the next story that we want to cover for you. Someone wants to weigh in on the question of the death penalty that we heard the call being made by one of our callers earlier on.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. I just want to comment regarding the death penalty. And I want to put it this way. If you let the killer live, the innocent will die. But if you kill the killer, the innocent will live. People will die, but it depends on who dies. Will determine who lives. That's for me. Polokwane.
Thank you for that. It's always a fascinating discussion. But as things stand, we don't have the death penalty in South Africa. And unless we have a major overhaul of the values, the constitution and everything, we are unlikely to have it. But it does come up from time to time. And I get frustrated with politicians who know that what you're saying doesn't exist. And there's no pathway to it unless you have an overhaul at a higher level that would change everything fundamentally, quite fundamentally. So sometimes you're just being populist and promising people something you simply cannot deliver under the current framework.
You are listening to The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's turn to this now. In a move to curb overcrowding in public schools, as well as address issues of admissions, the Basic Education Minister, Sifiwe Kwagube, has published draft regulations under the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, setting out maximum class sizes and minimum classroom space requirements, among some of what they provide for. The regulations, gazetted on the 6th of August, are now open for public comment until the 5th of September. Let's speak to Professor Mary Metcalf, who is Professor of Practice at the University of Johannesburg, who joins me now to talk about that a bit more. Prof, good morning and thank you for your time. The gazetting of these regulations by the Minister Sifiwe Kwagube, they cover 2 areas in the main. One being the admissions policy of the public schools, as well as the others being school sizes. How do they move the needle? Let's take the one issue on admissions policy, centering the head of department in those processes while acknowledging the role of school leadership.
Thank you, Thulasizwe. The admission regulations are taking forward the intentions of Bella, and Bella was drafted in order to make sure that admission policies were specific enough to give guidance to schools in the light of court rulings that have clarified the role of the school governing body relative to the education department. So that clarification, I think, is intended to make sure that everyone understands that in public schools, school governing bodies are important partners. But in the end, public schools are a public resource which need to be used for the benefit of the public, and the school governing body cannot, because of whatever concerns it may have, override the department head in the province. And what the court rulings have given us is lots of careful outlining of fair process. The department can't act peremptorily without giving a school governing body an opportunity to respond and to engage. And those processes were spelled out in Bella and now confirmed in these regulations.
And we see, I mean, they're quite extensive, and we simply won't have enough time to cover everything it covers. But I see some of the principles that are being argued in the draft regulations. They talk about some of the factors to be considered when crafting an admissions policy. These include the best interests of learners, as well as the demographics and education needs of surrounding communities.
Exactly. And that has been at the heart of the controversy around Bella. There is a commitment to the right in the Constitution to choose your medium of instruction. Now, what we have in the country is a growing complexity. Well, the complexity has always been there, but a complexity in terms of language choice. And in particularly urban parts of the country, we have a huge pressure on schools to admit more learners, because we have the whole issue of the urban inflows. So what we have now, particularly in urban areas, is schools that may be using only one language of instruction when the classes are underutilized, and children who wish to use another language of instruction are not being admitted. I noticed in an earlier interview, somebody raised the example of Mpumalanga, where the family is, I think it was Tsonga speaking.
Yes.
And there's no schools taking Tsonga, and it's a huge expense for the family. Now, then the department has to balance, okay, how many Tsonga-speaking learners, they live in this area, the existence of compulsory education and the right to education means they must be admitted. How do we manage this? How many Tsonga learners are there? What schools are underutilized? How do we provide classrooms? How do we provide teachers to make their right realizable in proximity to their home?
Yeah, and I'm glad you talked to that. It was from one of our callers out of Mpumalanga, I think in the area of Hazyview, who was talking about that dynamic. Prof, just lastly then, the other set of regulations has to do with classroom sizes. And I see that there are caps that are mentioned, 30 pupils per teacher in grade R, 40 pupils per teacher in grade 1 to grade 12. Are these even remotely practical and implementable in our current realities?
A very good question. I was puzzled by the promulgation of these regulations together with the regulations on admission, because you are correct. Practicably, it's nowhere near reality. I don't think you've got time for me to give you figures, but the figures nationally is that we have classes which have many more learners than that across the country. Some of those figures are shocking. Now, there's two constraints on reducing class size. Obviously, we would all wish to have smaller classes, and we know that even in sub-Saharan Africa, many countries have smaller class sizes than us. But it depends on the availability of classrooms, and it depends on the availability of teachers. And by availability of teachers, I mean the resources to pay as many teachers as we would like. At the moment, it's general across provinces that 85% of the budget is to be spent on teacher salaries. So that is where the major investment in education is. If we want to reduce the class size. We have to have more classrooms, we have to have more teachers, and we have to pay them. So I have been wondering if the intention of promulgating these regulations is rather on focusing on underutilized classrooms in high-density areas where learners are being excluded because the school does not have a language policy that allows for dual medium or parallel medium instruction with more than one language being accommodated in the school, because that is not a good use of resources and it doesn't address questions of equity. So it may be that these regulations are there to now start saying to schools, you have many fewer than 40 children in the majority of your classes. The norms exist so that we can work with you to optimize the use of classroom space so that more children living in the areas can be accommodated. And the DBE data shows the extreme pressure in urban areas, Gauteng, the metropole of Cape Town. Thank you, Thulasizwe.
Thank you for that, Prof. And we see it every year. That's Professor Mary Metcalf, who is Professor of Practice at the University of Joburg. And we see it every year. And I think part of what the regulations address is that phenomenon at the beginning of every year. Placement, applications, and now you have all these children that have to be placed. The admissions policy is part of what is being addressed there. I tell you what, let's get involved, read those regulations that are out for comment, and make your inputs so that, we shape how this act and everything that it seeks to regulate, how it plays itself out. Zai, I've been good. I've been good for many days. I'm going to be bad today. Let me go straight to let me go to Ann Musa and I'll come back to you in a moment.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, a 32-year-old Eldorado Park father accused of assaulting and raping his 4-year-old daughter will appear in the Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto today. The man appeared in the same court briefly on Friday. The UDM has welcomed the ANC's proposal to broaden the 10-party government of national unity. UDM leader Bantu Holomisa says the decision would help stabilize the broad coalition. And the National Union of Mine Workers says it has resolved to support an organization that would make its funding mission a priority to protect workers' rights. The NUM has dismissed claims it abandoned the ANC ahead of the 2026 local municipal elections. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Traffic headlines, bit of pressure to get off the N1 at Winnie Mandela. The lights are down on the bridge, so just getting off the highway, those ramps is a little bit more difficult than it should be. The N3, Limbro Park up to Peclu is quite heavy. That's on the run northbound. Crash on the N1 north at New Road, slowing traffic ahead of Allendale Road. And if you're driving into Pretoria, trying to avoid the R21 from Monument Park, a crash at Fountain Circle, causing quite a big backlog. Here's another one to avoid. If you're leaving Pinetown, just outside Durban, wanting to get down to the Bluff, a big truck has overturned and crashed onto the side of a vehicle beside it. It's a major incident, and it's a major backlog of traffic from North Dean, North Park, from that main road exit, all the way down through Queensborough and Malvern, all the way along that M7 into the N2. It's very heavy. Look at alternative routes. For example, you could come out of Pinetown, take the N3 through Spaghetti Junction, N2 south, and then hook into the M7. That'll bypass all of those big delays. Also a breakdown going into Spaghetti Junction, N2 southbound, and a breakdown which has been with us all morning up by Cliffdale in the roadwork. So very heavy. Pietermaritzburg bound just after Shongweni. You'll hit that delay. Cape Town still busy coming out of Tableview this morning. Marine Drive to Racecourse Road, Bloberg Road still queuing up down to Kuberg Road. Looks like something's probably gone wrong there. And Malabongwe Drive out from Rivergate towards the N7 at Dunoon, quite slow. Your major highways going into Cape Town, the N1 probably the busiest from N1 City and Parow Goodwood all the way through to the elevated freeway, still slow. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. I see that the fast bowling sensation that is Kwena Mapaka continues with the exploits down in Darwin, down under.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Good on you, mate.
Good on you, mate.
Good on you, mate.
Man, he's got the stump demolition, and we are definitely applauding this kid, Kwena Mapaka. He was absolutely fearless in that opening T20I against Australia in Darwin, first removing Mitchell Owens off stump with just his fourth ball on debut, then taking on the big hitting Tim Davids with words and wit. So despite the gutsy performance, the Proteas just falling short by 17 runs. And Parker's focus is now readying and getting game better. He's going to be obviously looking at the second T20, which gets underway tomorrow morning at 11:35. Let's go to rugby. Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus making a surprise call ahead of Saturday's Rugby Championship clash against the Wallabies at Ellis Park, naming captain Siya Kolisi at number 8 for the first time in his Test career. Here's Rassie.
The more we practiced and prepared, we realised that the only position the guy really plays at 8 is at scrums. And scrums is probably the thing that happens 13 or 14 times in a game. But general play is probably the thing that happens the most. And with having a guy like Peter and Marco and Sia on the field, at the same time, we really feel Australia is a big threat at the breakdown. All three of those guys are really good guys who clean out at the breakdown, and we feel we're going to need that.
On to soccer. Richards Bay FC head coach Ronnie Gabriel says the 2-1 defeat to Marumo Gallants in their Betway Premiership owner has given him a clear picture of where his side stands. Richards Bay have added 11 new signings ahead of the 2025-26 campaign.
Yeah, rightfully. We saw some good signs in terms of the players that we brought in. Mala looked encouraging. He looked energized. He looked a quality striker up there, and there were a few other changes as well that made us think positively going into Wednesday's encounter.
Onto netball and South Africa. Netball South Africa announcing their 15-player squad who will don the green and gold for the 2025-26 season, with acting president Mami Diale confirming that the selected 15-player squad will partake in the coming series against world number 1 and 2, New Zealand and Australia, from the 24th of September.
We just want to congratulate them and, say that go well and represent us. The team that we have chosen is the team that will be representing Netball South Africa in the Test Series, in Australia and in New Zealand. So we are saying to that team, do not stop. Keep on running. Because, this is yours. You were chosen amongst the 30, amongst the 2,000 that is representing us at Netball South Africa at the SPA National Championship.
And that's the wrap of the Morning Brief Sport. There'll be more on the scoreboard with John Hediker around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning one more time to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, let's start with news out of, is it called Isibalo House, the Stats SA headquarters. Tell me about their plans to modify the unemployment survey. What's that got to do? It doesn't have to do with the recent controversies around unemployment figures, does it?
It seems like it does, Tula. So Stats SA is planning to introduce an updated quarterly labor force survey questionnaire, and this will be from the third quarter, and in an attempt to better capture the nuances of the country's labor market. Now, the updated questionnaire aims to reflect evolving employment relationships in line with the latest international standards. The move, of course, comes after a debate about the size of South Africa's informal sector, which was sparked by former Capitec CEO Gerrie Fourie, who argued that the official unemployment rate of 32.9% could be closer to 10% when taking into account the vast informal sector. Now, following engagements between government, Fourie, and the agencies, Stats SA says it has conducted comprehensive testing and pilot studies to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the survey modifications. The updated version will no longer use certain concepts such as economically active population and not economically active population, and will instead use labor force and out of the labor force. Now, the changes are expected to improve knowledge on labor market issues.
Interesting dynamic. Talk to me about, while we're talking statistics, Quarter 2 manufacturing sector numbers are out and they are looking better.
That's right, Tulas. The industry posting a rebound in the last month of the second quarter. It delivered a 1.9% increase in output, which is expected to boost GDP growth. But economists warn that the sector's recovery may be short-lived due to challenges such as the 30% import tariff imposed by the US and persistently low business confidence in the country. Now, despite a stagnant month-on-month performance, 7 out of 10 manufacturing divisions reported positive growth rates quarter on quarter. The food and beverages division made the largest contribution to growth, increasing 6% and adding 1.4 percentage points to total output. Manufacturing sales also showed signs of strengthening, with seasonally adjusted sales rising 2.4% in June compared to May. In quarterly terms, sales were up 1.2% in the second quarter compared to the first. While the improvement in the sector is a welcome move, economists caution that the sector still has a long way to go to fully recover to levels seen before the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, Ndauling, cast your eye ahead over the next few hours and tell us what kind of a trading day we can expect on this Tuesday.
The local markets in for a positive start following international peers. In terms of company news, traders will be waking up to an update from Advitech and results from Weaver Fintech, formerly known as Home Choice. In terms of economic data, we'll be getting unemployment figures for the second quarter as well as the mining production print. So lots to digest today. And ahead of that, the rand is stable at 17.74 to the greenback. Oil also steady, gaining 0.3% this hour at $65 per barrel. Then over in Wall Street, futures are in positive territory. Those gains, though, have been capped as investors eye that all-important inflation print. And then lastly, in Asia, stocks on track to close higher, fueled by renewed optimism between the US and China.
Yimawo, what is Home Choice called now?
Weaver Fintech.
Weaver Fintech.
Yes.
Okay.
So they've had this fintech segment that's actually been bringing more of the sales. They even their own pay just now, so the buy now, pay later kind of platform, and that's been bringing them their most money. So they've changed their name to Weaver Fintech.
That was my mother's shop when I was growing up. She bought a lot of things. Mail ordered a lot of things from Home Choice. Ndauling, thank you. That's Ndauling there. She's kept you updated with business, economics, and the markets throughout the course of the show this morning.
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
I must say I quite like the surprise element where there's a voice note and the team has listened to it, pre-listened to it and processed it, and then they give me a short description what it's about, and I have the curiosity. I'm really curious. Guy Fawkes Day, what on earth is that about?
Good morning, Thulas and listeners. This is Nati from Cape Town. As a Cape Townian, I would propose that on the 11th of November, we have a Ferdinand 14 Day, just like the British got the Guy Fawkes Day. Thank you very much. Yes, man. You made my
Wow,
day.
what a twist. I didn't expect that. So a Ferdinand Fortuyn Day. If you don't know, if you just joined us and you don't know Ferdinand Fortuyn, he's the legend that is now going to prison for 5 years because he didn't want to go to work on a Monday, having had an evening or a night of heavy drinking on the Sunday, and decided that it was a good idea to do a hoax, a bomb hoax that would include his workplace out in Belleville. And it didn't end well at all with the results that he's been convicted and is going to prison. So Ferdinand Fortuyn Day being suggested, something akin to Guy Fawkes Day. Let me take one or two. This one has to do with Operation Dudula, and then one on CR17 donations.
Hi, Thulasizwe. This is KM. I just want to talk about the ladies who were arrested by the police just because they were doing protecting the law of South Africa. You know, this constitution is really, we can say it is contradicting itself. It's time now we South Africans must come to the fore and then talk about this constitution, because this constitution really, it is favoring the foreigners over South Africans. Now we ask ourselves, if a person is illegal in the country, is he not the criminal? Does he not doing crime? Thank you very much.
Good morning, Tulas and SAFM listeners. There was never an issue when people who donated to the CR17 campaign got tenders at ESCOM. That was not a problem. Maria Ramos donated 1 million to CR17 campaign, and then she was hired at the PIC, I think. That was never an issue. So this issue of double standards should come to an end, I think.
All right, thank you for that. Let me continue with the calls. Let me go to John in Limpopo, also wanting to weigh in on Operation Dudula. Good morning to you, John. Oh, in fact, let me start with... Okay. Yeah, John, please go ahead.
Good day, Tulani. I'm calling you from Limpopo. I just have one question to ask. I don't know if someone can give me a bit of clarity about it regarding Operation Dudula. We do have...
John, sorry, do you have your radio on? Please turn it down because I can hear an echo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have some foreigners who are legal in South Africa with a valid work permit employed by the private sector. And those foreigners, I saw one of them showing me his pay slip that he's paying tax which goes to close to 10,000 monthly. That is tax. And then recently he had a problem because one of his family members was sick, and then he went to the hospital in Durban, Addington Hospital, and then they were sent away while he's legal, and then the family is legal, and he's paying tax. So is that fair or injustice? How can we place that?
Yeah, no, I hear you, John. It's an issue that many people have raised. Thank you for that. That not distinguishing between someone who's undocumented and an illegal foreign national in terms of the laws of the country against people who are documented and in the instance that you give is actually paying tax and employed. That's that distinction that the criticism has been to say that that distinction is not being made in some of these campaigns. But let me go to JCK in Mosina. JCK, you are also on the same issue of Operation Dudula.
Ja, goeiemôre Thulas, hoe gaan dit vanmôre?
Goed, dankie. Hoe gaan dit met u?
Sleg man, onze regering werk nooit. You know, Thulas, the incompetence, negligence, and uncaring has established Dudula, whereby Dudula is doing the government's job. I mean, the state is failing. You know, if the state was doing its job or her job, there was no need for Dudula. So I think it's a high time that the government should uphold the rule of law. Thulas, to tell you the honest facts, you know, everybody must go wherever they want. I can go to Malawi, to Tanzania, wherever, but I must have documents. And then, Thulas, the bottom line is to be in a foreign country without proper documents. It's crime on its own. Why is it not crime in South Africa? I think, why can't we get a referendum We must get a referendum to take out this government of ours. And lastly, what I would like is, can't we have the people who knows about the law? Who can tell us, or what can we do as South Africans if government is incompetent and uncaring? Maybe they can advise us better.
But it's easy though, JCK. You vote them out.
Voted. It's taking 5 years, and we must get something like a referendum.
That's the referendum. Every 5 years you get one, and you are asked, do you still want this guy, and you say yes.
Thulasizwe, you reminded me. During apartheid, referendum was there, always referendum. I'm not talking about election, referendum, whereby, let's say next week, we make a referendum or we sign, and then everything changes. Yeah. So the government is relaxed because there is no referendum, man. Gotcha. You understand?
Yeah, gotcha. JCK, thank you for that out in Musina. Let me go to Mandla in Mthatha. Good morning. South Africa belongs to all who live in it. What does it mean?
Thulas, actually, policies remind me here of the Free Market Foundation about 3 decades ago when we were new in university. Their director, Leon Lowe, wrote a book here explaining that fact exactly, that when we say the country belongs to us, we share even what the profits the parastatals make. The way Muammar Gaddafi in Libya did it, Muammar Gaddafi would take the profits of the oil parastatals there and give a share to every citizen in the country. This is what must have been happening here in our country. If Eskom, SAA and others were making profits, as citizens of the country, we should actually be getting a share. And that is how much deep it is. I heard you made a good philosophical case, but it actually goes as far as sharing even in the
I was philosophizing what is not philosophical, yeah?
I had your case, Thulas. You are getting somewhere, but the gist of it is that we must be sharing even in the profits of the country.
It would be impractical, Mandla, would it not? Other than if those SOEs that you mentioned, they are making a profit, and then some of it, the dividends go to some fund through government as a shareholder, and then they're channeled through service delivery. But giving us a dividend individually, I think that would be impractical. Would it not?
It would have been possible to that if they were highly productive, because our comrades have taken the dividends among themselves, which should have been brought down to the level of the public in general.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that, Mandla. Thank you for indulging me. That's Mandla in Mthatha there. I've been enjoying this discussion. I did not expect it. It was raised by Mxolisi in Soweto, and now Mandla taking it forward. What does it mean? South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Crash coming into Joburg on the M2. It's at the Crown Interchange, and the traffic pushing back to Benrose and looking pretty heavy. The Germiston Home Affairs building is on fire. There's a lot of congestion in the central Germiston area. If you need to get into the sort of CBD of Germiston, you will encounter some road closures as police and the fire brigade obviously deal with that, and a bit of protesting around that scene as well. The N17 coming out of Blackpowder Springs, still slow towards Rondebolt Road. That's going to queue up into the roadworks there this morning and back home. You'll hit another queue this afternoon. N3 North up from Alex, passing Limbro Park into Buccleuch is quite slow going as well. Durban, a major delay on the M7. Try and avoid this if you want to get to the Bluff. A big truck crash this morning. M7 Bluff bound at the N2. Traffic's all the way back through Queensborough, back to North Dean and North Park. Stationary truck still with us. Has been there all morning at Cliffdale. Net result is it's still very heavy. Backlogs from the Shongweni exit as you go up Key Region into Cliffdale on your way through to Pietermaritzburg. Also breakdown before Spaghetti Junction on the N2 southbound. Cape Town, fairly heavy traffic through Wynberg Central this morning, coming in on Wetton Road and just along the main road. It's all very slow. And the highway still busy this morning. M5 from Kenilworth up to the N2 and the N1 inbound still under a bit of pressure there from N1 City as you make your way through towards the city centre. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
FlySafe's Business Booster is back to help elevate and celebrate small local businesses. Enter now at flysafe.co.za. Tell us about your business, and you could be one of 6 standout enterprises to win 10 return business class flights plus brand exposure across FlySafe's various platforms. Whether you're making, creating, or innovating, we're here to help your business not just take off, but skyrocket. FlySafe, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Last year's finalists, Stellies, are on a mission to graduate to this year's final, while Babina Nuku want to do the talking on the battlefield. This is the MTN8 First Leg Semi-Final. Don't miss out on Stellenbosch FC versus Sekhukhune United on Saturday, 16 August at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC Plus. Also available on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Do you know what's hiding behind colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org, HEALA.org by 30 September.
Big stories of the day. #The Morning Brief.
Yeah, so earlier on I asked what's mom's superpower, and then I said, actually, what's boss mom's superpower? My next guest is Anya van Beek, who is a talent strategist, leadership and HR expert, as well as an executive coach. Anya has penned a piece on Independent Online that reflects on reporting from Harvard Business Review. It's really expensive. That's all I know about HBR. It's not cheap. But yeah, Anya reflecting on what was written on Harvard Business Review. The sentiment that says, being a mom has made me a better businesswoman. And this is said to be a sentiment that deeply resonates in today's work landscape. In a world demanding adaptability, empathy, and innovation, working mothers are emerging as a new breed of leaders. And in fact, that's the argument from Anya van Beek. Let me welcome her so that she can tell me exactly how this is happening. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time, Anya. So the piece from Harvard Business Review, you cited at the start of your argument, but you make the argument that working mothers are emerging as a new breed of leaders. Many people will say, how, in a world where the systems just make it so difficult to be able to juggle motherhood as well as the responsibilities at work, it's just ever more difficult.
Yes, good morning, Thulasizwe. How lovely to be with you this morning. And it's absolutely true. I think it's two sides of the coins that we see here. Because if we have a look at working moms, there's so many transferable skills that they have that's really, as you use the word superpower, that's really adding to the strengths and the skills and the competencies that they bring to the modern workplace. And then on the other side of the coin, we do see that they struggle a lot. And asking the questions, are businesses and leaders doing enough to support them? Because, if we have a look at the transferable skills, there's skills like emotional regulations. No one better than a mom with young kids know about staying calm when you're under pressure. And that skill you can imagine similar when you're managing team dynamics. The same when you think of multitasking. Mothers, working moms have so many different schedules that they need to balance, and they're experts with time management and things like multitasking. But the one that's standing out for me is definitely looking at resilience and thinking how they need to navigate setbacks, how they need to be adaptive in changing circumstances in their work and in their personal lives. And then if we look at some of these statistics, we see a different picture where 66% of mothers says that stress and the cost of childcare is considering them leaving the workforce and even reducing their working hours. And we see that especially the younger moms, the moms in entry-level jobs, perhaps not with as much benefits, even, thinking of at the start of their careers, they might not have enough savings, is affected by these high cost and economic pressures. And I think that's where businesses need to consider, are we doing enough? Do we have the right dialogue to make sure that we offer flexible structures, that we do give recognition in order to retain these women in the workforce?
So is it your experience that these transferable character traits and skills are particularly handy at the executive, at the leadership level of organizations, with the result that, they're able to, working mothers at that level are able to navigate complex dynamics in the organizational space?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we have a look at the reality of the world of work, everyone is talking about the speed of change. Everyone is referring to, as you well said it now, the complexity of what we're dealing, the pressure from these shareholders, the pressures from teams demanding different approaches to manage them, even the customers that want quicker turnaround times. And I think that is where the transferable skills come into play, because there's so much uncertainty. And if you have a look at the feminine leadership style, it's definitely where we see empathy and compassion. We see the focus on relational, relations. And I'm of the opinion that they have so much high EQ that it's easier for them to lead in this fast-paced world of work that we live in.
All right, I've got to thank you. Completely out of time. Thank you for indulging me and sharing those insights with me. That's Anya van Beek, who is talent strategist, leadership and HR expert, as well as executive coach. Look out for Anya's piece. It is out on the Independent online. In fact, I think it was out a couple of days ago. It makes for interesting reading, but also alluding to that publication that I said, the subscription is not cheap, Harvard Business Review. Thank you for that. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of The Morning Brief. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your robust engagement through it all. The team, Kete Mohlahlana in the team, with the talking point after the news at 9 with N. Musa. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. You've been briefed.
In our top stories, Eldorado Park father accused of assaulting his 4-year-old daughter back in court, and UDM supports ANC's proposal to broaden the GNU. Good morning. We start with news just in. A fire has erupted at the Home Affairs building in Germiston, east of Johannesburg. We'll have details in our next bulletin. The following story contains graphic details and could upset some listeners, including children. A 32-year-old Eldorado Park father accused of assaulting and raping his 4-year-old daughter will appear in the Protea Magistrates Court in Soweto today. The man appeared in the same court briefly on Friday. He faces charges of murder, attempted murder and rape. The accused allegedly physically assaulted the girl and a 2-year-old brother. The girl has since succumbed to injuries. In another case, also in Gauteng, a 39-year-old man accused of repeatedly raping his daughter, resulting in her